This is our Mercedes SUV comparison episode. Which one is the best Mercedes SUV with combustion engine? Join us here for the Mercedes GLS, the biggest one, versus the Mercedes GLE, we have it as the SUV, and also the Coupé version, versus the Mercedes GLC. We have both the head-to-head GLE versus GLC, but also individual versions of the GLC, the normal GLC SUV, the GLC Coupé, and also the strongest one, the GLC 63 AMG versus the compact platform brothers, the Mercedes GLB versus the Mercedes GLA, also directly head-to-head with my colleague AJ, and with me, Thomas. I also take a look at the Mercedes G-Class, recently updated both in the electric version and also in the 8-cylinder version. After all, it also competes with the other SUVs, but we are showing the differences there as well. So which one is the best Mercedes SUV for you? Which one would I actually take home? Join me here, Thomas, and my colleague AJ for these comparison episodes. Let's go. Today we are driving the facelifted big boy in the Mercedes lineup. This is here the Mercedes GLS facelift, so to speak, the S-Class of SUVs inside the Mercedes portfolio. But how S-Class-ish is it really? And what can it do against the main competitor, the BMW X7, for example? We'll find out. It's Thomas, Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go with this new front grille. Before it looked a little bit more old school. Now they have this more horizontal, shiny design. Let's take it that way. 1, 2, 3, 4. And it always looks like this, unless you go for the AMG 63 version, which then gets the vertical fins in the front grille. One of my favorite Mercedes color. It's in unicolor. It's called Alpine Grey. And it looks matte-ish, but it's not a matte color. As I said, no metallic, it's a unicolor. And I think it really looks always fresh and is also not too sensitive when it's like a little bit dirty or something. It always looks great, actually. Multi-beam LED, also updated headlamps as for that. And the length here coming to the side. And this is the typical GLS style with the very upright window. And yeah, a more conservative style, so to speak. Also here then the wheel arches in vehicle color. Wheels from 20 to 23 inch, 21 inch would be standard in the US, and 22 inch is standard here for the 580 version for the 8-cylinder. And we'll see how it, behaves with the comfort and so on. Standard air suspension. We'll also drive it here on the German Autobahn for you here today. And towards the rear, also updated tail lamps with a more modern design here. Also, when you look a little bit closer, I think that's actually well done. So to give it a little bit more modern, fresh look. And in the lower part, Autogefühl fake exhaust police checks it out. Yeah, I mean, it's not pure fake, at least here. It's the 8-cylinder. They always want to have the same graphic. This air runs through, but the outside tip is not the actual exhaust. Yeah, 3.5 tons, by the way, is the towing capacity, so is also one of the very famous Mercedes trailer vehicles, so to speak. Turning indicators, that looks pretty cool, right? Because all of these small elements are being replaced by that then. Interesting idea. Yeah, just in the rear, maybe not as spectacular as in the front. At least it's visible enough, but actually more visible from the side than from the rear, honestly. Key fob, high gloss black. Well, it's actually, still quite worthy. Let's take it that way. Then the doors. Do we have soft close here, actually? Yeah, we do. Soft, so either soft close or slam it, and then it sounds pretty cool, right? Yeah, good sound. And here we also have these side step. You don't have to go for them. They look cool, actually. Yeah, they get dirty easily, however, and then when you get in and out, sometimes this can actually also make your pants also dirty right here. So yeah, you have to wear then high-grade leatherette pants, then it doesn't happen. Then here at the inside of the doors, everything covered here, also in the carbon fiber look. That's actually quite cool. Probably go for that you don't have more high gloss black. And here, this is still the generation where you can move these seats controls and they give feedback. I think it's better than the all new ones. Here then also, this is rather hard packed though, but there's a rubber cover in the lower part. Yeah, but this could be maybe a little bit better. Then this interior here with a nice entry badge. And steering wheel is now new with the facelift. It now has the hashtag capacitive BS buttons. So I think harder to control than before due to that. Then the seats here, this is the animal skin. In the Northern American market, you can also get the Artico leatherette. And I have to say, in both cases actually, other competitors like the BMW X7 offer better comfort. It's not the best quality at that given price here. So also in the leatherette section, BMW, for example, has the better quality. So seating wise, it's not ideal. Also here the animal skin is really stiff, not that soft. However, space wise, 189, 6'2", there's enough headroom left. And in the European market, they even don't offer any alternatives to the seat materials. So this is disappointing here at Mercedes. Then steering wheel. She responded to that.
Something went wrong.
Yes, something went wrong. Yeah, I would say so. Then the steering wheel up and down, in and out, easy control. I love these shifting pedals. They have great feedback, even though if it's not the most, let's say, best use case for a large SUV to have shifting pedals. I mean, probably when you go downhill for a longer period of time and so on, want to use the engine brake, then maybe, but it's not that, hey, I want to do it on the racetrack or something, but they just give you such a satisfying feedback. That's really awesome. And the favorite part of this vehicle is to come up very soon, because the rear seats and the trunk and the mechanism, the electric folding, this is so fun today. So definitely stay tuned for that very soon. Cockpit overview, signalized by this huge middle console with the panic handles here that Leah can also hold on tight while I'm driving. Very civilized, as usual. Then we also have the carbon fiber decal element. In this case here, there's like an AMG premium line for the interior. Nice ambient lighting integration. That was what Mercedes always does very well. Then here the glove box also folds down a little bit dampened, but could be maybe more dampened. This is also a scent thing, so you can apply some perfume to the interior. And this huge middle console here, you can slide this one open, but it's a lot of high gloss black. And then you have adaptive cup holders. Here you can attach some cables, inductive charging pad, and pretty cool here, you have cooled or heated cup holders in the front. Then you have this pad here where you can control something of the infotainment system. This has also received an update here, so with the facelift, and also here an update for the visual part, also for the air vents, all horizontal in the mix. And what I love here still, yes, manual climate unit with clicking sounds. You can control the climate and also the fan speed and so on. So I really appreciate that it's not the all new latest generation of Mercedes vehicles, that we have a somewhat more conservative user interface. You can also control the air suspension from here in the middle part, for example, like that, here for upper and down, but also adjust according to the driving modes. And then split for the armrest with some clutter underneath and USB-C charger. And yeah, this is also a nice closing sound when you open or close that one. And one of my favorite things is all that we have the ambient lighting integration here at the side of the handle. That is also a good job. Some say it's maybe too much. I just love it. And here the screen integration, you can already see it from here, is here in this horizontal thing. And then with the ambient lighting once again underneath. Driver POV, look at that. Here are the capacitive feed. So this is like one field that also gives some kind of feedback, but then the capacitive function decides which part of the field you are pressing, and you can, for example, slide with the volume, but also press. Then the digital instruments with different stylings you can pick, also full screen map, for example, or this off-road view. That's pretty cool actually from the styling. And then there's also a head-up display next to not only off-road view for here, but also in the main infotainment system. You can go for that one here. And then you have all the off-road information here. I think the scheme looks cool, right? With this terrain view, that is really something pretty cool, isn't it? And what you can also do is here have this transparent bonnet feature. So here, when I turn on the engine and then I just go forward, there is a past feed being built up that you can see what is underneath the tires. So this is not a live feed from underneath the bonnet, but still you see where it is in comparison to the tires, that you don't damage the wheels and so on. So this is a pretty nice idea, isn't it? Then let's go back here. We have a main menu, all has been updated. Yeah, it's, let's say, simple enough, not the latest version. Most of the time you will use Apple CarPlay, Android Auto anyway. And today's panoramic roof is proudly presented to you by Leah. Here you can use this real lever still, and then you can actually, it goes all the way over the vehicle.
Wow.
There we go.
Do you hear it?
That's cool. So there's a very wide opening also. Pretty cool. Yeah. That's then the GLS convertible. And what I also would like to know, what about the sun blinds, like the visors here in the front? Can they be extended actually? And is there just one or two?
Good question.
There's two, right?
And
so they can be extended.
wow.
And also a second one then. So that's pretty cool actually. Rear seats, that's going to be very interesting. First of all, inside of the doors, everything nicely covered and so on, carbon fiber. And here we also still have the feedback to control the seats. Heated seats also available, and also interesting here, just pull this window lever one more time and then you have the electric shade. That's the mechanism I also prepare, and look at that, how all of the window is covered, and just pull down one more time and that's it. And I don't need separate screen for that or something like that. Then here when I'm driving as a tall driver, I still have enough of legroom. There's no problem at all. Super much legroom, and also with 189, even though the panoramic roof is here, all works. By the way, I can also control the interesting. Ah, there it is. Just didn't pull enough. There we go. I can control the top shade here from the rear. This is also a very, very rare function. It goes all the way in the front, but I want to have some more light here. This is really interesting. So hardly any other vehicle we see where I can control it with one button from the rear. Also then this top shade. And I also have here in the middle part, I can fold this down. Also with ambient light integration and have another screen. I can also put this out. But honestly, who would do that, and for what reason? I have no idea why would you do that. Yeah, it's maybe like a reminiscence of the past. Then here, inductive charging pad for your phone, some more space underneath, and if you fold this up, you can also sit here in the middle part. So either you get this through bench design, or as an alternative, you have a captain's seat set up here for the GLS, that it is a 6-seater. In this case here, then the 7-seater. And yeah, you can also sit in the middle, so this is easily working for 5 tall adults. Let's see if there's more possible. And here in the middle part, you also get a separate climate unit, a real one with a haptic feedback and so on. So pretty cool as for that. Turn it off now for the sound. And yeah, good point. Yeah, with 2 more USB-C chargers. I hardly didn't see it from my perspective. Good point, Leah. Thank you. And ambient lighting also in the footwell in the rear, and you have the cup holders also here, some in the front here, like a very small one and then a bigger one that is also adaptive. And now what I'm going to do is, by the way, ISOFIX here on the front outside in the second seating row. Top tethers are behind that. So now if I move this part here forward, that I could still sit there, because we want to check out the space in the third seating row. Maybe let's put it like this. So here also electric control for the rear seats. And then there's this top lever I can pull. So I can fold the seat forward for an entry to the rear. That looks quite cool, right? And then it also goes up a little bit like this. That's nice. So now I squeeze myself in here. And could I still sit here to put the head restraints up? That requires some work. There we go. Pretty heavy. Yeah, legroom wise, not really. This doesn't work, but at least we also have ISOFIX here and top tether for the third seating row. So this is like a child seat machine here. Headroom wise, it does work for tall adults, but legroom wise, yeah. Not really, but this is not, let's say, that the main purpose of that one. But you do have massive amounts of legroom in the second seating row, and also some more comfort features like here USB-C chargers and also seat heating for the third row.
Wow.
We hardly see that. What we have here actually is when you press like this here, and then it says also roller cover. There you can also attach the the cover from the trunk. If you don't want to use it for the very back, fold on this, and then you can also install the trunk cover right there. That's also pretty interesting.
That's amazing.
And let's see, can I... there we go. So I can also control the seat here one more time from the third row. So for example, I can make myself comfortable here and then cage myself in, or of course in the other way around if I want to get out again. So then you can see this very interesting mechanism. So this is really some piece of engineering, isn't it? And now to one of the most exciting parts for today, the trunk or boot with folding all the seats. It will be amazing. Wait for it. Let's open that one. Good feedback also, the sound, electric hatch. Then you have a small cover here for the last row. And you can see, the trolley also fits underneath vertically. And this is also pretty cool. This is here 1 meters 20 or 47 inches here in the very front. So really wide right here. And the normal length of the back part here is like 55 centimeters or 22 inches. Some space here underneath. And now I first have to remove this one here. So you have to maybe like here. It's a little bit tricky like this. So, and then we have a free view. And now we can do the following. Here I fold the second row and a button for folding all at the same time. On the right side, I can lower or higher the vehicle from the air suspension for loading in and out. And here the third row. So, and also individually. I think probably the most spectacular feature is putting everything at once. However, to measure, it's better when I first do this. And here, let's take a look at that. Let's put the cover to the ground now. So there we go. So that's really nice, isn't it? And this is also the normal trunk length here of about 1 meters 25 or 49 inches. And by the way, the height here is really high, 85 centimeters or 33 inches in the highest point actually. And now the second row, also electric. And this is just awesome, isn't it? Really, really cool. I love that mechanism. So, I mean, you don't have to do anything yourself there. And here, like this 2 meters or 79 inches, it's even longer than that here than for the full flex. And also, if you want to do everything in reverse again, now just one button here, all pull at once, and there everything goes back together. This looks
so
amazing,
nice,
right? Yeah, Leah is also really enthusiastic about this. Pretty cool, right? Shall we do it one more time with the all button for down again here? So I would just do it maybe like Homer Simpson style, you know, seats up, seats down, seats up, seats down all day. Yeah. This is also how you can get your kids be enthusiastic about cars, not only about engines and sound, about seat folding, right? Top tether, by the way, third row, and also 3 actually in the second row. Engines, 3-liter 6-cylinder, diesel, also made in Europe, otherwise the 3-liter 6-cylinder petrol, but also the 4-liter V8. You have it right here in the GLS 580. Above that would only then come the same engine, but then in the AMG spec, then the 63 engine. Again, then of course a little bit different, the engine, not 1-to-1. This one here, the normal V8, is at 4.9 seconds in the acceleration figure. The EU figure, 4.7 in the US, the miles per hour figure for the acceleration. And this one gives you 520 horsepower, all-wheel drive of course, always with a rear-wheel bias. And another technology update is also that all the engines now get a mild hybrid boost for better efficiency and little bit of power. Sport mode. That was 50 to 130. Yeah, that V8 is going quite well. At least straight. Under 5 seconds in the acceleration figure from 0. So 4.9 is the EU figure to 100 kilometers an hour. And also some nice sound feedback. And in the sport mode here, the throttle input is a little bit quicker actually. But here on the German Autobahn, we can actually also drive quicker, and that is soon to come. First of all, here at the normal motorway speed, sport mode here, the air suspension is a little bit stiffer. You can also vary that, see if it makes a huge difference. Now to the comfort mode, now it's a little bit more floating actually, and in general, the air suspension is set on a rather soft note, soft air suspension, floaty Mercedes ride. I really appreciate that, that's pretty cool. However, you also have 22-inch wheels here, and they do reduce the comfort. They're standard for the 580 here, for the 8-cylinder, and that sometimes gives you a strange driving feeling, because you think, hey, the air suspension is very soft and gives you nice comfort, but then you're going over some bumps, and you feel them pretty harshly, and you think like, wait a minute, wasn't the air suspension soft and nice and great in comfort? What is happening here? So by that, you have a soft suspension, but with the big wheels, it can still feel bumpy. And that's not ideal. So I would go for a GLS, and probably, have to go for a smaller engine and with smaller wheels. Once again, back to the sport one from 130. 200 kilometers an hour, 125 miles an hour, and even quicker, 220. And now we see the situations when you have this.
Wow, it's so heavy. Oh.
Yeah, you literally feel that when you are on the brakes. Yeah, Leah's already taking a toll for that. Whew. Yeah, and that's the thing, not meant to race it, that one, because the engine can do it. It's really, really powerful. But then again, so much weight needs to be decelerated again. Yeah, and you do feel that. And although you're on the sport mode, still the suspension is still keeping everything in comfort check. Really nice. But yeah, as I said, when the road is nice and flat, then the wheels are no problem. But as soon as there's some irregularities on the road, doesn't feel too good. The suspension is itself great, definitely. Steering, yeah, it has some kind of dead zone here, especially when you are in the comfort mode. This is probably meant to driving straight, to motorway, cruising and so on. But I would like to have more feeling, because here hardly anything is happening. And recent Mercedes steering wheels, an all new models are actually better in that respect. So Mercedes has taken a huge leap forward as for that respect, but here not a very fine feeling. Noise insulation here at 160 kilometers an hour, so already quite quick, quite fast. It is kind of windy outside here today, but I would say it's not the best noise comfort we had in a large SUV, but definitely also not the worst. But I have to say that, yes, the V8 is a little fun to drive, but does this one give me the feeling of driving such a high-priced premium vehicle that I would pay a 150,000 dollars for that? That's doubtful. So yes, of course, you get a lot of stuff that is good and typical for Mercedes and so on, but I think the driving quality so far does not really justify the price. That's my point, so maybe it's also better than a cheaper product, but not so much better than the way cheaper product. You know what I mean? What's your take on that? Yeah, okay, Leah agrees.
I feel it's like a V-Class.
She said it's similar to a V-Class in driving.
Oh, it's so heavy and wow.
Now the Mercedes guys will be pretty angry at us.
I'm so sorry, but I don't like it. No.
But you heard Leah lately in the BMW X3 review that she wishes the Mercedes
the
GLC and prefers the GLC over the X3. So that just to save
it's a different level.
Different level and different segment. But maybe will save Leah from the wrath of the Mercedes guys. Yeah. We're also going here into an S combination now, switching the motorways, and we'll see more about this sporty or non-sporty characteristics. And there we go. Of course, like 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, then it's really silent, of course. No problem about that. So here in the sport mode, air suspension a little bit stiffer, but you really feel it's like a huge boat you're driving over, and not the best feeling in the steering. So there, for example, a BMW X7 would give you way more joy in driving. And also the big Audi SUVs, like a Q7, a Q8 and so on. Q8 of course a little bit shorter as for that. But then again, their suspension setup at Audi is for the SUVs then rather stiff. So the question is what you prefer. If you rather go straight, then this soft air suspension is probably better. And to me personally, I do always prefer air suspensions which tell you they are air suspensions and are soft and floaty. I love that. You know, that's what I also like about the Mercedes air suspensions if they are not AMG. It's just, again, I think that the wheel choice is just too large for that vehicle here. And yeah, the solution probably would then be the 6-cylinder, which can be bought with smaller wheels actually. Let's accelerate it out one more time. Wow, gives you that push. There we go, in 140 again. So that is of course pretty cool in the performance. The downside of that is a super high consumption. So from the German vehicles, is one of the least efficient ones you can buy overall. 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, cruise control is the minimum. 12 liters and more kilometers. So, but then when you go into a mix of a little bit higher speed, city, it's more than 15 liters on 100 kilometers. In MPG figures, 20 to 16 MPG US and 23 to 19 MPG UK. That's the span then here for the V8. And yeah, this is of course then once again better with the 6-cylinder. And let's change this one motorway one more time. This is also kind of, oh, Leah's already preparing to hold herself tight. There's also a treacherous bend here because there's a transverse bump in the middle. And exactly now, that was actually mastered quite well, I have to say. But yeah, you just have this shaking up effect a little bit there. You just feel the weight you are carrying there. And most of the time you would probably stay in comfort mode and then just keep it simple, keep it slow and so on. And yeah, control the climate unit, the manual one, while driving easily without looking down. So just looking straight and changing the climate there. That's of course a cool thing to do, definitely. So this is more thought out to like long US highways where you rather drive straight, 1 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, and then it does also most of the things well. And the soft air suspension makes sense. Also the steering is maybe not too sensitive and so on, and that's a noise insulation at really high speeds is not where, for example, a Mercedes E-Class or S-Class would be at higher speeds and so on. Yeah, and for the brakes, you have to think about that this is a heavy vehicle and that you have to be a little bit earlier on the brakes actually. One more time, I will go to the motorway to check out some of the assistance systems because that's also very important for that. But here also when you drive a little bit slower, maneuvering it in the city can be kind of challenging, especially like in narrow European cities. In the US it's maybe not a problem, but this one's also not being offered with the rear axle steering, and that also gives me a hard time to maneuver it in and out of the basement garage. So hardly any other vehicle which is actually giving me such a hard time not to damage the wheels at the like small sidewalk thing than in the basement garage, where I still don't know why people built that in the basement garage, because it's just annoying for everyone. Yeah, so not that flexible, not that cruisable in the city, definitely. Way more fun than here on the Autobahn, definitely. But as I said, the driving fun itself is not the best inside this segment. Then when we get here to the assistance systems, now with the capacitive controls here on the steering wheel in this facelift, so doesn't really speak for the facelift, I would say. And then here I've also set the active lane keeping assist, and then let's see how smoothly it keeps me in the lane. Yeah, so far actually quite nice. So not too many hectic reactions and so on. And then there's also a blind spot monitor which is integrated in the side mirror. So assistance systems wise, everything really smooth and well thought out. Yeah, you have to know the limits of that vehicle here. pricing on the Northern American market, at least $90,000 for the GLS, and then 115 for the 580 for the 8-cylinder, and of course then, you know, when you spec it some maybe like $130,000 or something like that. On the European market, always more expensive, also the prices including the VAT. So 110,000 euros for the GLS base, 138,000 euros for the 580, and yeah, then some 145,000 euros, something like that, when you spec it also as it stands here right now. In the driving dynamics, it cannot catch up, for example, especially with the BMW X7. There it just offers more driving fun from the BMW perspective. This one here more with the floaty soft air suspension, which I personally like, but then I would go for smaller wheels, and these are not available here with the 8-cylinder, so we should rather go then with the 6-cylinder. Is also better in the fuel efficiency because yeah, it gives you good boost. It also sounds nice, maybe good for towing, but for most use cases, the 6-cylinder will definitely be the better engine here. Is also a little bit less weight in this Mercedes yacht, so to speak, because yeah, it feels sometimes like a big boat to steer around there. My favorite ones are definitely like the flexible solutions there on the inside. And tell me what you think. And now compare the BMW X7 or size smaller, the Mercedes GLE. Today I have the Mercedes GLE facelift for you, including a driving part with Thomas in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go with the front with new headlamps, new signature, and then when you have the optional multi-beam LED, 4-dot design right here, white vehicle in AMG line. Then you have this one horizontal spoke, whereas the base Mercedes GLE has 2 horizontal spokes. Here the AMG line also comes with this microstar pattern and also a different graphic in the lower side part, whereas the base version once again would have a more subtle look. The front indicators here replace the daytime running light. That looks quite fancy, doesn't it? And in the driving part later on, we will compare and drive GLS 450 versus GLE 53. The length at 4,92 meters or 194 inches has remained the same. Wheels now start bigger, 19 inch up to 22 inch. These here are somewhat in between, 21 inch, but already massive enough from the looks. AMG line has the wheel arches in vehicle color, whereas the base line, baseline, has it in the crossover wheel arches. And typical for GLE is always this design graphic right here. As for suspensions, you start with the base steel suspension, but that one already has adaptive dampers. Optional airmatic air suspension, we also have it here, and optional. The E-Active body control, it can also lean in the corners, so we can go this low rider style and so on. We'll have the normal air suspension for today. The rear with new tail lamps, and when you have the AMG line, then you have this high gloss black in the lower part, and Autogefühl fake exhaust police is reporting another set of fake exhaust. And a quick look at the turning indicators, not that spectacular. And as a comparison, this is the 63 model, 63S, now gets the logo on top of the hood, the AMG logo, and here 53 and 63 get the AMG front grille with the vertical fins. 53 and 63 are different in the lower side part here, where the 63 looks a little bit more massive. You can go up to 22 inch. Here you can also see the 22 inch in the AMG styling, really massive. Here also with the optional carbon ceramic brake. And in the rear you have this diffuser style in the central part, and the exhaust tips, real one is on the inside. The Autogefühl fake exhaust police is always watching for you. The facelift changes also account for the GLE Coupé, and it always starts in the AMG line. This is here a 53 model, so it also has the true AMG grille. But these sides here in the lower part, this is the same in AMG line and also in the 53 model. The Coupé always, of course, characterized by this falling roofline. It does split opinions. Are you team love or team hate as for the SUV Coupé thing? Tell me in the comments. In the US, by the way, the Coupé only available as GLE 53 or 63. On the European markets, you have a wider engine choice also for the Coupé version. Key fob in matte black and not high gloss black piano lacquer. I prefer that way actually. Door closing sound. Really solid light, and also the panel gaps well built. Inside of the doors, I prefer these models here from Mercedes, where you can still have a haptic feedback at the seat controls and not without the feedback here. Also, styling elements you can also find in a GLS, for example, with this deco element. Also news taken from a GLS, even from the Maybach, is here the galvanized tops here at the air vents on the left side, and that goes throughout the vehicle. New steering wheel. Looks pretty fancy, this the base steering wheel, but then has the capacitive BS buttons. So I think I preferred the previous one in that case. With an AMG line or true AMG, you also get the 2 horizontal spokes then at the steering wheel. Dual insulation glass here, by the way. Seats here, the animal skin. How do you see it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 patterns here. The Artico MBTEX has 4 patterns. Yeah, other than that, it's hard to differentiate. The Artico available in black, grey and also new brown color, updated. 189 or 6'2" is the headroom here. That's good command driving position indeed. GLS and GLE don't differ so much in the front driving position. It's more about the rear differences then. Interior overview, you can see this galvanization here at the design element and also here now at the air vents, so a little bit improved quality. Different decor elements available here. To me, it's a little bit too much high gloss black piano lacquer. I would prefer matte wood. What would you? To me, always very important that you can still set the climate unit manually and with a very rich clicking sound. MBUX infotainment system update. I think it's quicker than before, just more responsive, and Apple CarPlay also wireless. Of course, also Android Auto works. Burmester sound system tries to be, this very true sound, keeping to the original source. I like the sound indeed. And there's then also this new off-road mode available. You have here this off-road view and then also a special off-road camera live feed around that. And as soon as you go forward here, it builds up this past camera image, and there you can see I'm going over this puddle here, for example. So you always see if there's something between the tires to prevent damage. The head-up display is indeed a very impressive one. Look at how large it is, very clear as well. And you also have off-road head-up display, Eco. You can have different settings there, a standard one reduced or a sporty head-up display. So much to choose from. And the digital instruments with integrated map from the car internal GPS or map full screen. And my favorite are the new off-road gauges here. That just looks coolest from the visualization. Or once again go classic or with the sporty gauges. Middle console in the front part, you slide this one open, inductive charging pad. The cup holders are not holding the bottles too tight, but you can cool or heat them. That's pretty cool. Then you have here this touchpad where you can use alternatively to the touch screen, so you can also control the infotainment, driving mode selection here. And when you have the air suspension, that option, you can also lower or raise the vehicle manually. Last but not least, this split armrest. Panoramic roof is really wide, and you can also open it completely. Really like also this crystalline look here of the top inside interior lamps. And here we go. Let's go a little bit further. That's it. Rear bench. Actually, the door opens quite wide, so you have easy access and also for child seats and so on. Isofix at the outside parts. The bench is quite short and also folds backward a little bit. That's maybe to me not the best in comfort, also if you compare it to, for example, the BMW X5. But what is better here is the legroom. Because of the design of the rear bench, you have more legroom actually than in some of the competitors. That's actually decent. And the headroom also for tall people, no problem at all. The middle seating here is surprisingly soft in the middle part for the seating area, just a little bit stiff than here from this back area. And you now also have 2 USB-C chargers at the rear. The trunk, 825 liters up to over 2000 liters. You have here this cover, which doesn't have rails at the side because you can also get a 7-seater for the GLE, but I think that doesn't make any sense more than in the GLS. Here the width is actually quite good, 110 or 44 inches, and the normal length is about 1 meter or 40 inches, so that's good. And the total height here is 85 centimeters or 33 inches. Very good measurements. To fold the seats, you have to grab over here. It is possible though. And if you went for the AMG line or have a true AMG model 5363, then you have the steering wheel here with 2 horizontal spokes. This is also the one with the microfiber sides, can really recommend it. You can also get different decor elements like the carbon fiber here and also sportier seats, also with some microfiber share at least. But you can also get, depending from market to market, a full Dynamica microfiber on the inside and with the AMG line or the 53 model at least. Rear headroom in the Coupé, the panoramic roof is not as long, and so it rises here again towards the rear, and then you see still enough headroom left indeed. And a quick comparison to the boot or trunk of the Coupé. Length, width, more or less the same, of course, and here the different cover. The difference is that you lose height here in that latter area. In most cases you will be able to live with that. Engine lineup: 2-liter 4-cylinders, petrol and diesel, 3-liter 6-cylinder petrol and diesel, 4-liter V8 petrol engine in the 580 or in the 63 model. The 53 model gets also the 3-liter 6-cylinder. To me, the sweet spot is the 3-liter 6-cylinder petrol engine in the GLE 450 indeed. You can also get base engine, for example, in the US with the 350, that one even just with rear-wheel drive. News is that all are equipped now with mild hybrid system, and plug-in hybrids are also available, both petrol and diesel. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge with the Mercedes GLS 450 facelift, 381 horsepower, now mild hybrid system, and 5.6 seconds is the acceleration figure to 1 km an hour or 62 miles an hour. Air suspension already helps here in city driving to even out some bumps and so on. I wouldn't say that it is a super soft setup. You do feel still it's an air suspension, that's good. But it's also not that it's leaning too much in the corners. Very interesting is I found that with an earlier driving test, GLE and GLS, that when you have the E-active body control, it's also feeling a little bit stiffer. You know, you have this leaning into the corner possibility then. At the same time, I feel that you lose a little bit of comfort just, you know, from this evening out things. That was quite quick, to 35 miles an hour. Wow, that went well. So this engine here is definitely more than sufficient. As for the power, do you really need an AMG version? Of course, it's a different kind of thing, but for most use cases, this is totally fine. As for the acceleration, here in the corner you can see doesn't lean too much from the air suspension, but the seats actually don't hold you that tight. There is also, depending on the market spec, the Dynamica microfiber available. There's like a microfiber on the inside. It exists in the AMG line if that's available in your market. And this one actually keeps you a little bit tighter in the seat, so I can recommend that. Then now here on the motorway, 65 miles an hour, so around 100 kilometers an hour. Noise insulation is really good, it's very silent in here. You've also seen the dual insulation glass at first. In the sport mode, already when you have the base suspension, the suspension goes a little bit stiffer. Here in the Airmatic air suspension, of course, even more so. And you can go back from the drive mode select to the comfort mode, then the suspension is evening out. The waves, for example, a little bit softer, a little bit better. You can drive in any mode. It will still be fine actually. As for the assistance systems, setting in here on the left side of the steering wheel, there is this active lane keeping assist. See here it's not too proactive. I had to correct myself now. Now it's catching it. There we go. So here now I'm being kept in the lane. Of course, never trust it 100%, for example when there's a vehicle at the side or something. But it can be something to, let's say, relax a little bit more on the motorway. Just keep your hands in the steering wheel and then let the car do like the fine nuances and so on. How does it behave in a lane change? It's really nice, very smooth indeed. And steering doesn't have a dead zone area. There is always reaction and it actually feels quite natural. And in agile driving corners, we'll see, is it also sporty fun in the riding? And for the agile driving part here, countryside, I go once again to the sport mode to give us a little bit more feedback from the suspension. Let's see difference here. Steering, comfort mode, sport. Yeah, I also get more feedback from the steering. That's actually cool. You could also set an individual mode. For example, if you say suspension soft, but then more feedback from the steering, that would be my tip for today for an individual driving mode actually. The normal air suspension is a little bit stiffer here. The curve mode in the E-active body control would now lean into the corners, but it's such an expensive option, and in the normal driving behavior, I think a normal air suspension setup is cooler actually because it's a little bit softer then. So I would stick either base suspension, go lower budget, or then go with the normal air suspension. I feel it's also good control here in the steering. When I'm in the corners, don't have to steer that much. that's fine. Also when I, for example, accelerate out of a corner, then you have the rear wheel bias, even if you have the all-wheel drive. That's also good that you can have some fun actually getting out of the corners right here. So we felt at home on the motorway. In the city it's not too big, and here also it's agile enough. It does give you driving fun. And the only thing is here, when you have the slick surface with the seats, they don't offer too much side support. You get used to it, it's okay, but that could be maybe a little bit better. Other than that, it also very well handles this discipline here. The fuel economy, if you have some steady driving, mainly motorway, like 60 miles an hour, 100 kilometers an hour, you can indeed score some good figures of 9 liters on 1 kilometers, 26 mpg US, 31 mpg UK. Of course, more going up in the mountain, then it's a little bit worse. And in the US, it will always be a little bit more efficient, like here at this moment. In Europe, you can calculate with a little bit higher consumption because of the OPF, the particle filter also for the petrol engine, for example. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge. Now with the 53, the GLE 53, also as the Coupé. I'll put it in Sports Plus mode and let's accelerate it out. Whoa, that was like already 40 miles an hour. And I even didn't like, that was like 80% of the pedal. Really nice, and how smooth you see in the steering wheel. It was like an acceleration out of the corner from standstill. Really nicely done. So a very, very controlled acceleration. Rear wheel bias, of course, with this all-wheel drive system here. So you always get out of the corners very well. Difference is you have the same base engine, so to speak, but here with more horsepower tune, 435 horsepower. And with the facelift, with the electrification, this vehicle profits from it because it has even more power or even more boost. So the 450 at 5.6 seconds, then this one here was at 5.3, but now with the facelift at 5 seconds. So there's now a 0.6 second difference in the acceleration figure, 450 to the 53 model. So just more boost, more punch then, and also you heard it, just more sound. Of course, the exhaust is different, and also in the sound emulation on the interior even more so. You just hear more, something also this plop, plop, plop when you get off the throttle. The air suspension is here also set on a stiffer note, and for the 53 is an option. Standard for the 63, you can also get the anti-tilt control, so the car just stays more upright. So indeed, this one feels way better here in tighter corners. So you feel as there would be less G-force applied. The seats also hold you tight a little bit more. They have also some microfiber share. Same goes for the steering wheel with microfiber share, which gives me just more control over the vehicle. So here, definitely the recipe, the more microfiber you can get, the better it is for the sporty driving. And indeed, I have more fun driving this one here than the 450 in the corners. Of course, there's also a hefty extra price, but it just gives you more sporty feeling being here in this full-size SUV. At least for European taste, it's a full-size SUV. So this is here, or these are the roads where the GLE 53 can really play out its advantages. Do you need the V8 for the 63? Not necessarily. This engine is way, more than enough power-wise, and the 53 is, to me, also a sweet spot. Remember that in the US you can only get the Coupé as 53 or 63, so when you're from the US or North American market, this one would be then the Coupé to go for actually. And here also, once again, out of the corners, really nice, good control of the steering, very natural, and I don't have to steer too much, so having a lot of fun in these corners than here. So this is just a sporty difference, and together with the different styling, visualization, also here with the carbon fiber and so on, it feels quite different to the normal GLS 450. Indeed, it's just a question, do you desire this sporty driving feeling, or would you rather say like, I'm buying the GLS more for the relaxed comfort and so on? Then of course, you might as well just stick with the 450. Both, of course, do a good job overall.
This is the Mercedes-Benz GLE, and that is the Mercedes-Benz GLC. I'm going to be comparing both of these SUVs, and it's actually a lot more interesting than you might think. Because of course, the GLE is on an older platform, released originally in 2018. This is the facelift. So you get new design for the headlamps. I really like this 3-spoke design with a star pattern in the grille. What about this alpine gray color? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Now the GLC is actually on a newer platform from 2022. So this gets better ADAS as well as a better MBUX as compared to the GLE. The front is a lot more shallow. It's a lot shorter than the tall upright GLE. Although the grille is, again, similar in these two cases, and I really like the wing and the pattern up here. Digital lights, really cool, really useful at night. Has some really nice animations as well, which help you when you're driving at night. I also really like these 20-inch AMG line wheels with the machined finish. I like wheels which have a lot of spokes. Makes it seem more luxurious. This also has a night pack, so you get blacked out window frames, a nice running board, and again, from this angle, it does look more like a crossover estate rather than a traditional SUV. Another important difference is the size. This is 4.7 meters and the GLE is 4.9 meters. 21-inch AMG wheels on this particular car and body-colored bumpers. So yes, it's a bit more sporty, but just look at the proportions, the flat doors, the tall and straight roofline, and of course, critically, this fantastic C-pillar. This is definitely an SUV, and I love the C-pillar because it also harks back to old traditional Mercedes SUVs, and therefore in my eyes this is the prettier of the two. But what about you? Put your preference down in the comments below. In this profile, the height difference becomes more evident. The GLE has a more butch and straight upright design. I like the tail lamps as well. It's very sleek. Looks really nice and modern. If we go to the GLC, this is a little bit shorter and is a little bit more curvy, I would say. It's not so upright. There's more angles, there's more 3D kind of sculpting. Here is the key fob for the GLE. Keep it in my pocket. There's a nice heft to the door, and you're invited with this plush design on the interior. The seat controls here. Seat heating, and in this case you can also use that to adjust the seat of your passenger, the front passenger. The sound system is also phenomenal. 3D audio. Animal leather seems to be the predominant variant here, but I do like this light color. Not the easiest to maintain, it gets dirty fairly quickly. Getting inside is pretty easy. There is a bit of a climb up, which I actually love. I love that it feels like an SUV. And the seating position as well. I have the seat a little bit higher so that I can see the top of the hood. And I do feel like I'm in a big GLE. The expansive front dashboard is very flat and straight. These two screens, along with the air conditioning vent and this design element, just really emphasizes the width. The GLE, just because it's a bit bigger than the GLC, adds to the luxury feeling, in my opinion, because space is luxury. And then in the driver's seat, you also have a much wider view out the front, so it does feel like you're in a much more upmarket vehicle. I like the steering wheel. You also have paddle shifters here. Capacitive buttons. This setup I don't think is the best setup, and we'll talk about what the GLC has and see if it's any better. But you can press some of these buttons. For example, I can use this to change the view up front, and I really love Mercedes head-up displays. They're really large and really bright. Right next to this instrument cluster here is the actual infotainment screen, and here's where I think it starts to show its age. First of all, there's a large bezel around the screen, and secondly, I'm not the biggest fan of this MBUX version. Where it does redeem some points is the fact that you have separate buttons for your climate control. In terms of storage, there's a nice tambour door here, which gives you an inductive phone charging port, a couple USB-C, and you also have these beverage holders, really wide, also fairly deep, so I think it'll grip your bottles in place. You can also get options to have these heated or cooled. Not this particular car here, but that's available. Really nice wide opening as well, because the wheel base is pretty long. the wheel arch doesn't really impede into your ingress. The door also opens fairly wide, almost at a, I would say, 80 to 85 degree angle, so putting in child seats, for example, would be easier. Interior door materials are really fantastic, so there is no skimping out from the front to the rear. The top is also very plush. This seat is set to my driving position. I'm 5'8" or about 1.73 meters. I mean, it speaks for itself. Look at the amount of space here. I could probably keep a small suitcase in front of me if I needed to. There's plenty of space for me to slide my feet under the seat as well. Headroom is plenty. Here is the key fob for the GLC, and just as a comparison, you see how the GLE looks a little bit different? Interesting. I'm glad that there's different versions of this as compared to them looking all exactly the same. Already it does feel a bit shorter, you know, so the doors comes below my head, but again, inviting, very plush, soft materials up here, soft materials down here, piano black in this case. In this case also, this particular car that we have has ventilated seats. On a hot sunny day like this, oh, it's a lifesaver. The interior of the GLC, we'll get to this in a minute, but the seats themselves are also quite different. You do get Artico or leatherette seat options here, and I think that's a nice added touch that you get more flexibility to also pick some animal-free seats and hopefully in the future also pure vegan interiors. Let me get inside. I definitely don't have to step up. In fact, I have to stoop a little bit down to get into the GLC. And this, just coming from the GLE, automatically feels like I'm sitting actually in a car. The roofline is not that tall. These interior rings have ambient lighting. In fact, there's ambient lighting up here, ambient lighting around here. If you like ambient lighting like me and my wife, this is definitely the better interior. Plus you can make the light brighter inside as well. The design on the dashboard is quite different. Even here you get different options for the actual inlay. I'm not the biggest fan of this kind of a gray. I would have preferred a more wood tone or something else. What do you guys think? And of course, the floating MBUX screen now in a portrait orientation. And as you can see, it controls everything because there's very few buttons, and that too, haptic buttons where you have to slide for the volume and things like that. Yes, you can press for the mute and of course the hazard lights, but in general, especially here, as you see, the climate control is all controlled with the touchscreen. Now, the benefit is it takes not much time to get used to it, and I find in practical everyday use, I don't change this temperature all too often, so I'm not really fiddling around with this. It's going to take care of it. You also have the voice assistant, and you can tell that to change the temperature as well if you don't like using the touchscreen. I understand. Some people like it, some people don't. I personally have gotten used to touchscreen climate systems. But what I do appreciate as compared to the older MBUX on the GLE is the landing home screen. You see how there are widgets that display the kind of information I want to see. I can have my phone information, some other information here. I can choose which widgets. The landing home screen also has a large map that I can quickly glance at. So the real estate is completely occupied by useful information as compared to just a background. So this is what I appreciate. And also, if I go to the main menu, these tiles are so big, they're so colorful. I know exactly which color and which tile. So if I want media, I know it's a big purple square. If I want phone, it's a big green square. And it's a big, easy target for me to touch even while driving. So definitely much more modern. I like this because you have 4 different spokes. And while you have haptic buttons here as well, it's easy again for muscular memory to know, okay, this is to control the screen, this is for the adaptive cruise control, this is for media, and so on. So you know up, down, left, right. It's easy to isolate these functions with muscular memory. Paddle shifters as well. And then same story when we come to the actual screen. You have different views that you can have for your instruments and also a really nice head-up display. In fact, I would even say this might be even a smidge larger than on the GLE. All right, so first of all, wheelbase not so long, therefore the wheel arch does impede a little bit into your entry space. Also the fact that this door is not that wide, nor does this open to the same degree, I would say. It's a little bit less than the GLE. But the door itself, again, has nice material, so they haven't skimped out on the top nor the bottom where you put your elbow. Again, more ambient lighting here at the rear as well to entertain your passengers. Same knurled finish on this for the window control, but hard plastic down here for the bottle holder. So, getting inside, not too bad. Again, it's not as low as a standard C-Class sedan or an estate, but definitely feels a lot more smaller, as expected. And I think this also speaks for itself. Same, this is my driving position. I'm 5'8", and sitting behind myself, of course, I'm not going to complain. It's definitely spacious enough. There's plenty of knee room, plenty of place for me to slide my feet under as well. In fact, I do feel like I'm sitting a little bit higher than I was in the GLE. Not a big deal. Definitely, I don't feel like my knees were up in the GLE, but this does feel like I'm sitting a little bit higher, the waist to heel kind of distance. And I do love this panoramic roof. My recommendation is always get it for the GLE as well. As you can imagine, the trunk is a similar story. This is about 460 liters, so definitely smaller. If I were to put the ruler from the back seat till here, it's about 94 centimeters or about 37 inches. If we were to take the height up to the roof here, that's about 74 centimeters or about 29 inches. I also like the fact that you have the switch here to lower the rear of the car with the air suspension. You have switches to tumble the seats as well. You get a lot more trunk volume. You can remove this altogether. That is about 195 centimeters or about 77 inches. GLE, of course, is even bigger with 630 liters of boot space. And remember, you can even get this as a 7-seater option, and a long wheelbase is sold in some markets as well. But already there is no kind of guide track for the parcel shelf. And in this particular version, there aren't any switches to tumble the rear seats. So, come on, I think that should just be given as standard. But regardless, the space is definitely so much more practical. This is about 41 inches or 104 centimeters. Similarly, down here you have a huge extra storage area as well. To tumble the seats in this case, I have to go around. Now, if you were to take a quick look at the distance to the front seats, yeah, wow, about 197 centimeters or about 77 inches. But I think more significant than these dimensions is also the height, which is definitely more squared off. You know, it's not so curved. It's a lot more usable across the entire width, about 82, 83 centimeters. And that's about 32.5 inches. Both these SUVs can be had with a wide range of petrol, diesel, and hybrid powertrain options. To keep things comparable, we have the 450D version of both. This is a 3-liter inline-6 turbo diesel engine making 367 horsepower, PS, metric horsepower, and they both have mild hybrid boost. In fact, the GLC, since it's a little bit lighter at 2 tons as compared to 2.4 tons, is faster to 100 kilometers per hour than its AMG 43 counterpart at 4.7 seconds. So, properly quick. They come mated to the 9G Tronic automatic transmission and, of course, the 4MATIC all-wheel drive system. They also both get air suspension. Yet, thanks to the new platform, the GLC is the one that gets rear axle steering. This, not even an option. Let's kick things off by taking the GLE for a spin. Now, this has air suspension. It's really smooth, very soft, very composed. The noise insulation is also really nice. If anything, I hear a little bit of the tires. They are summer tires. They're on 21 inches and they're quite wide. So there's a little bit of tire noise, but wind noise is absolutely null. It's not a windy day. It's the middle of the afternoon on a summer day, so the air is very still, but definitely noise insulation is really nice. This expansive interior space also lends to this calm demeanor of this SUV with the ADAS doing the heavy lifting for me. I am really cocooned in a nice, relaxing ambience. Aiding that, also I have some fun little features here, like the seat kinetics, for example. You can also get massaging seats depending on the options you select, but that also kind of moves the seat a little bit. Now we're coming up to this traffic jam. See, I'm not doing anything. It's hitting the brakes a bit too sharply. And, it's like I would have pressed the brakes a lot sooner, but because this ADAS, again, doesn't really think too far ahead, it waits a little bit towards the end to hit the brakes, even though I have the distance set to, I think, almost the maximum, just because, we're filming, so we want to be extra safe. So it doesn't react as sharply as some of the other systems out there. Visibility is also fantastic. Really wide front windshields, large, tall windows on either side, and really chunky, big outside rear view mirrors, so you can really get a nice view of your surroundings. Of course, when you're navigating through tight spaces in the city, you have the 360 camera you can quickly turn on if you need. And to be honest, even though this is a pretty big SUV and it doesn't have rear axle steering, maneuverability is not compromised. I think it's surprisingly nimble and you can squeeze into gaps. I think the front wheels steer at a pretty sharp angle, and this really aids in being able to maneuver it in tight spaces. But yeah, this ADAS system now and this stop and go traffic on the Autobahn, it's basically driving itself. It's coming to a stop, it's setting off. In the city though, I've noticed that you need to tap on the accelerator pedal after you've come to a full stop at a traffic light to then tell it to start driving again. It won't pull away when the light changes and the car in front drives away. But that's fine, I think you can live with that. Let's talk about mileage. So this is a diesel, so it's on the slightly more fuel efficient side compared to just a pure petrol engine, but it is 2.4 tons, it is all-wheel drive, and it is a 3-liter inline-6 diesel, so we're getting about 9.7 liters for 100 kilometers. That's pretty steep. High-speed mannerisms, I can tell you from this platform, it's really great. Nothing really phases the GLE. It's so big, the air suspension squats down at high speed, so it really feels like it's gripping the road really well. There's too much traffic now for me to really floor it, but if you want, you can watch the GLE, the AMG 53 hybrid that I tested just a couple months ago, and again, similar platform, so it really feels stable out on the highway. In the city, the GLE is surprisingly friendly. Now, this tall seating position means that I'm able to place the car in these narrow lanes, and again, because of the sharp steering angle that is possible with the front wheels, it does a good job of helping you squeeze in these little gaps like this. I live in a very narrow little part of Europe, and just parking the car in my neighborhood is it's quite tight, but I didn't feel like this was going to be out of place. It didn't feel like a monster truck. So it's surprisingly useful. It will certainly benefit significantly from rear axle steering. So I hope with the new platform, whenever they release that, they're able to incorporate that. I think this needs it. And other competitors in this segment, even the Touareg platform, all of those SUVs get rear axle steering. So I think the GLE definitely needs it. Let's go into sport mode and let's put our foot down. Not bad. I mean, all things considered, not bad at all. I like the sound of the engine, I must say. I like this diesel. It's smooth, it's refined, it's a straight 6, so again, a very very balanced configuration for an engine. If I were to take this corner now, body roll is also well contained, I would say. Let's see, there's not much traffic around here. I'm going to slow down. Let's bring it all the way down to standstill. All right. And then we're going to put our foot down. It's actually shifting at around 4,500 RPM. Not bad for a diesel engine. That's surprisingly revving high. So there is power that it's being generating throughout. In fact, you also really don't notice that the mild hybrid system is working away in the background. It's filling in all the little gaps of turbo lag. This 9G Tronic is really sharp with changes, so smooth, but really quick as well. You can of course take manual control. You can click on the manual button here and use the paddle shifters if you like. But I think the character of this SUV, you want it to do its own thing. So it's definitely something that you can enjoy driving. All things considered, it is as sporty as this kind of a form factor would allow it to be. Let's see how it behaves on some really rough roads, some potholed roads. Ooh, there we go. See, it thought there was a car in front of me. There is no car in front of me. Hitting these speed bumps. Oh my God, I didn't even feel it. I didn't even feel that I went over a speed bump. You didn't even see that, did you? No, it's so smooth. So definitely very smooth. This is a very narrow road. And even if I were to drop the outside wheels, there's no sharpness that's filtering in. So definitely really nicely sprung suspension here. Now we're in the GLC. In fact, I've parked the GLE right behind me in this quite narrow parallel parking street lot. So let's start by actually testing this rear axle steering to help us get out of this tight spot. So again, lovely 360 view camera. So you can see the GLE behind us. There's a green pole. I also like this kind of this parking sensor line. And there you go. Just with that ease. Super easy, super convenient. The steering is so light now. Just watch this. I can almost do I could almost have done a complete U-turn in just this little lane. So rear axle steering really makes a big difference. If anything, as you can imagine, the GLE needs it more, but the GLC definitely is better off with it. And it really helps shorten the wheelbase at low speeds, like right now. I can also feel it's a fun sensation that the rear also steps out. It's like it's dancing. So the rear wheels turn in the opposite direction ever so slightly by a few degrees at low speeds to then effectively shorten the radius of the turning diameter, or the turning radius. And at high speeds, it turns in the same direction as the front wheels, again only by a few degrees, to elongate the turning radius. And this way the nose isn't pitching and turning left and right so much. It's almost like a quasi-strafing kind of action. This makes it more stable at high speed. So best of both worlds. It's completely a steer-by-wire system, so it decides into how much to steer based on these different factors like speed. So definitely much easier to drive in the city, and jumping from the GLE to this GLC, it really does feel like I'm sitting in a car. The roofline is fairly low. The seating position is also, it's a little bit more upright than a regular C-Class, but it's not a full SUV feeling, I would say. I've turned on the ADAS system because let's start off by driving on the street to just test that out. So the speed limit has changed from 50 to 70 now. The system recognizes that. And this is a little bit more sophisticated when it comes to these kinds of things. It reads this, I feel like it reads the traffic signs that are further up ahead and already preemptively plans for them. So if there's a speed limit that's changing, it starts slowing you down much sooner than the GLE does. We're coming up to a red light. It's already slowing me down as compared to hitting the brakes at the last minute that the GLE did. So I can already feel the benefits of this new generation. This is also much lighter than the GLE, and therefore for 244 kilometers that I've been testing this car, it's giving me 7.8 liters for 100 kilometers. So much more acceptable, definitely, with the same 3-liter inline 6-cylinder turbo diesel. Visibility is actually not bad at all. So it's definitely not bad. It's just in comparison, the windshield is a little bit shorter, it feels. The windows are also a little bit shorter. The roofline is a little bit closer to me. So it doesn't feel as spacious and as large on the inside. And that also maybe makes it feel a little bit not as grand and grandiose as the GLE, because I feel like I'm in something a bit more compact. The steering also has a really nice grip, and these twin spoke design on either side really helps with the muscle memory, like I said, for turning on and off these cruise control systems. Noise insulation at these speeds at 70 kilometers per hour is very quiet. Narrower tires also mean that I don't hear much of the tire noise. Again, on a still day like this, there is no wind noise to speak of, so you do really feel like you're cocooned in luxury. These seats are also very comfortable. Seat kinetics, you know, like after a long drive, you feel like doing this to kind of stretch out your back. Well, that's kind of what the seat kinetics do on its own. That's what I feel like. So it kind of moves the backrest a little bit back and forth. It's just so that you change position to release some of the stress on certain points that if you've been sitting for hours. It kind of helps move those weight and pressure points across different parts of your back to make it more comfortable on longer journeys. This also has something fun called the energizing comfort. So it plays a little program, you know, you have refresh, warmth, vitality, joy, and it for example turns on the seat ventilator, it blows colder air, it plays a nice animation and some sound, the ambient lighting changes, the seat also can move a little bit, so it uses all of these little functions to try to rejuvenate you on a long drive. Of course, massage seats, I think the GLC platform is, it's really a dynamic platform. It's really stiff. This feels so much more like a car to drive than the GLE does. It's much more communicative. There is less of this kind of wallowing. And because of that lightness, it's more sprightly. It's light on its feet, you can feel that. The rear axle steering also makes it really energetic and lively and agile. This is definitely a very dynamic platform, period, full stop. Not in any comparison, it's just in general a really nice and dynamic platform. That being said, like for example right now, look at this. It automatically will turn on the indicator. It's changing the lane for me and it's continuing. I wasn't paying attention because it knows the speed limit is 100. It sees that there's space on the left lane. The guy in front of me was going slow. I shouldn't take my hands off the wheel, so it deactivated it, but the minute I put it back on, it turned on the indicator and changed lanes for me, and it's speeding up. So again, on long journeys, if you have a family, it wants to come back to the right lane. Okay, cool, thank you. Come on, that's pretty cool, right? That's pretty cool. On long drives, in the dark, when you've been, because I love going on long drives, and when I do like a 2-week road trip, the last 2 days are always the toughest. You know what I mean, right? You've been driving for thousands of kilometers at that point, and you need a vacation from your vacation, but then, I have to drive all the way back from Barcelona, or I have to drive all the way back from Positano. Those are 2 long days of driving. A system like this, that would go by in a flash. You would feel so much more confident. It would be so much safer. So yeah, definitely. Let's go now to sport mode. There we go. Remember, 4.7 seconds, 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, or 62 miles per hour. Woohoo! Look at that. Just gonna go around this roundabout a couple more times. Really nice throttle response. The sound also is, I think there's a sound actuator that's bringing some more of the sound inside, but this feels really like a small little sports car. Because of that rear axle steering, it does feel light. The engine does sound nice with the sport mode. There is a sound actuator, definitely. It really does, again, coming back to the fact that it feels more like a car. This air suspension gives you so much versatility. In this mode, it lowers down, it's more taut, gives you more connection. Steering gets heavier. Oh! Definitely a lot more punchy acceleration than the GLE. So that 400 kilos Seems like it makes a big difference. And being sleeker and shorter also lends it more aerodynamic benefit, I would say. The 9G shifts really nicely. Even in the sport mode, when it knows that I'm not calling upon all that power, it shifts up rather quickly. Now it's in 5th gear, just taking at 1,300 RPM, 1,400 RPM, so it's also not constantly holding high revs. I would say the GLE just out of brute force flattens this a lot more. I can feel this bouncing me around a little bit more. So objectively, same road, within an hour of each other. Yeah, this is not bad, but definitely more jiggly than the GLE. More jiggly than the GLE. There you go. Back to sport mode. But acceleration is definitely much more sharp. Let's see if there's a safer place to do from a 0. Let's see if we can pass this area here and do a quick acceleration test. Yes, look around for safety, no pedestrians, no cyclists, no cars. All right, here we go. From standstill in sport mode. Just gonna put my foot down. The acceleration starts a lot sooner. It's a lot more pronounced. Definitely a healthier amount of torque. Sound is nicer as well with this sound actor. And the dynamic capability definitely much better here in the GLC. So I think there's some conclusive evidence that you can use now for making your decision. This particular GLC is about 85,000 euros and this GLE is about 105,000 euros. But the tricky bit is you can vary the options significantly. Which is the right one for you? Let's break it down. First, the design. I personally like the more traditional SUV design of the GLE as compared to the more crossover design of the GLC. The interior as well is a bit more traditional with more buttons, more space on the interior, and also comes as a 7-seat option. But I think in terms of technology, it is abundantly clear that the GLC has the better ADAS as well as the better MBUX. And therefore, my decision is the GLC. But let me know what you think. Put it down in the comments below.
This car is full of tech. Rear axle steering up to 4.5 degrees in the opposite direction than the front wheels. Or here, when we switch from one ground to another, and you can see here, when I fold the seat, here, you see pretty cool stuff, isn't it? Love these details indeed. It's time to take the all-new Mercedes GLC to the German Autobahn in our full review. Let's go! This is Autogefühl with Thomas. And how good is the new GLC? We can see it here in the exterior AMG line, and this is also the most bought model, the most bought styling indeed. And it now has these micro stars here in the front grille. It's a beautiful feature indeed. And we also have the night pack with a lot of black accentuations already later in the side mirrors, for example, you can see that. And these headlamps here, they start already with LED, and then optionally you get the digital light with even more high beam performance.
You see these people there in the background? They were actually laughing at me because I wear white trousers in the winter in Germany.
But I actually think it's more important to wear clothes that fit the vehicle color. Yeah, that's my hobby. Is it also yours? Do you sometimes wear clothes accordingly to your vehicle color? Tell me in the comments. At 4.72 m or 186 inches, the new generation is about 6 centimeters or 2 inches longer, so a little bit longer than before. Wheels come from 18 to 20 inch. These here are 19-inch wheels, aerodynamic styling with winter tires, and the 19-inch are also standard then when you go for the AMG exterior package. And then we can see here this side step here. This is actually not only a visual thing, it also actually helps aerodynamics. A very interesting thing indeed. It has this typical GLC shape here with this coupe-alike ending, but of course there will also be the GLC Coupé. You will also see more about that soon here on the Autogefuehl channel if you subscribe. Visually here, more horizontal stress of the rear lamps, and also has this kind of raindrop design. Do you see that? Tell me in the comments. And technology-wise, this is very interesting. Suspension, you get a base one with already frequency selective dampers, but they are not active actually, so you cannot select them.
or a sporty setup, and then you directly hop to the air suspension on both axles indeed. Plug-in hybrids have rear axle air suspension as standard. This one here today is equipped with the air suspension. And another technology highlight which also sets it apart from the competition. Already in this segment here, rear axle steering up to 4.5 degrees in the opposite direction than the front wheels. That helps this vehicle massively when parking in and out, and also reduces the turning circle by about a meter. And down there, Autogefühl fake exhaust police alert. Yeah, because this is truly fake. Is it really necessary?
And turning indicators here in the rear look like this. Not that special, isn't it? Definitely prefer the front view for the turning indicators. What about you? This is the car key. Good quality impression indeed. Then the door closing sound is, yeah, we heard better ones indeed. Inside of the doors, and yeah, they are the red styling sounds of this vehicle. And don't be mistaken, you can also get other stylings, of course. And here, this is quite cool, right? The ambient lighting integration, you can always see it at the inside of the doors. That's awesome. However, here, this new generation, this is the seat control. And so far, there was a feedback when you move it. But here now, something happens with the seat, but these pieces do not move. And I think that's a bad decision that went worse, actually. Here, this one is also equipped with the Burmester sound system. Great sound indeed. And then we have completely new steering wheel. This is also the AMG design here with the two horizontal spokes, perforation at the side. And once again, awesome ambient lighting. Look at that. I love that indeed. And then below that we have a matte wood styling. So styling wise, this really rocks. Yeah, besides the red seats, which is, you know. Yes, indeed, red seats split people in love and hate. Which team are you on? Team red seats or team other color? Tell me in the comments. And there's a saying like in Germany, when, you know, someone puts such a red interior, we would colloquially say, das sieht aber echt Porno aus, Alter. Listen and repeat. Das sieht aber echt Porno aus, Alter. Which literally means that kind of looks like porn, dude. Yeah, that's a unusual German lesson here with Thomas and Autogefühl. So, and then with one wheel's 89 or 6'2", there is some headroom left here. So that works fine. Seating comfort here from the ergonomics so far looks fine. We have to see later on how it plays out on the Autobahn, on the German motorway. The seat surface, this case here is animal skin, but Mercedes offers a wide variety of great seating materials which are also animal free. This Artico leatherette, this is looking exactly like this, is a little bit softer even and available in different colors. Like in the UK, it's all about that. With the AMG line in Germany, we also get microfiber inside, Artico outside. That's also a great choice. And also German base levels have fabric, for example, on the inside. And US market is rather than all about the Artico, then again in different colors. But it's a great material and can also be combined with seat cooling. And look at that panoramic roof. That leaves a lot of light in. And we can also open it. However, for that, there is sliding action. So you indeed have to slide here. And then it opens. Let's try something else. Hey Mercedes.
How can I help?
Open the sunroof.
I'm opening the sunroof.
Yeah.
No results were found. What can I do for you?
Okay, that came unexpected. Interior overview. Well, look at that. This is a design object, isn't it? Look at this area in here, this ambient lighting integration, and the matte wood right here, beautiful. Here at the steering wheel, hashtag capacitive BS for the cruise control, for example. So sliding that while driving, you can also press it, yes, but it's not that exact, I would say. And here the upper one is then to control the digital instruments where you can slide through. And that is right here where you can go through the fuel economy details, for example. Well, that's an interesting result. Should be a little bit better, I think, nowadays. That's like 9 liters and 1 kilometers on this trip, or 31 mpg UK or 26 mpg US. And here you can also change the whole styling. For example, make it here full screen map, or also what I really like, the off-road gauges. Yeah. And head-up display is also available. Once again, my favorite design detail is here, these illuminated air vents. But wait a minute. Look at that. Like the central part. That's totally off. You know, this isn't straight. It's like this one neither. Huh? This one here on the left side is, however. So I really love a lot of design elements here in this vehicle, but when I pay so much money for this SUV here, then I also want all my air vents 100% straight when they are closed. So Mercedes engineers, I think coast cutting on these here is not a good choice. Maybe you can fix that? Lower middle console, a lot of high gloss piano lacquer. Not my favorite indeed. What's cool is that you have underneath here also illumination. And then you have inductive charging pad there in the front and 2 USB-C chargers. These cup holders here, by the way, they are somewhat adaptive. You can push the front one to fold out, but for, let's say, glass bottles, for example, or the bottles that are a little bit smaller, they don't hold them tight enough. Then here is armrest, split opening, and more space underneath, a little bit segmented, why not, and 2 more USB-C chargers. Infotainment system, this here is the GPS integration, car internally actually quite smooth. Then here the temperature integration, yes, no real knob, but at least it's always staying in that position. When you are switching the temperature here, you can see the air vents, they get red or warmer, or then blue again for colder. Works on all sides. This is really awesome indeed. This is the whole climate menu, so when you sync it actually, all react together. Pretty cool stuff, isn't it? Love these details indeed. In this home menu we can also switch to the Apple CarPlay. This is the integration then here. Android Auto also possible, wired or wireless. And the sound system, it's really cool sound, I really love that. You can also switch the sound profile, audio entertainment. Pure comes more from the front here, and when you go to 3D sound, it's really like all the way around. Yeah, that's what I actually prefer. Really awesome indeed. And then let's take the off-road gauges. These are really interesting, also look cool like in the instruments. And a special feature here is the off-road camera. Look at that. And this is actually showing a past recorded camera image. So when I start up the vehicle here now, then when there, for example, like is an object underneath us, we could detect that. Or here, when we switch from one ground to another, and you can see here, this is, like this, the live image, and underneath the vehicle, this would be like the past recorded image, but I can still see where is maybe like the big stone or something, and that I don't scratch my tires and then like destroy my tires on that stone here, for example. In this case, this line here on the parking lot is demonstrating that. So pretty cool system, and in general, the resolution also of the rear view camera is awesome, crystal clear. That's also another feature I really love. We can argue about the high gloss black surfaces, and I don't like them, but what I found pretty cool is here the illumination also in the rear. Look at that, how the ambient lighting is also integrated at the inside of the rear doors. Rear seating, as I am driving as a tall person, 189 or 6'2", yeah, it gets clothed with a knee room here. This recess is well used, yes, but it just barely fits. Headroom wise, also very close here. Can put a hand over my head or over my beanie in this case. But here there's the great panoramic roof. This is a nice view here from the rear indeed. The comfort in the rear is quite decent, especially here with the animal skin surface. It's, quite hard actually. So one of the other seating surfaces would give you a little bit more softness in the cushion there. Then here the either smartphone or tablet holder, and then there are cup holders that fold out here, and in this middle console here we have 2 USB-C chargers and also a separate climate unit with this one button design. With the trunk we're at 600 liters now, plus 50 liters in gain. Then here the width is easily 1.40 meters, even a little bit longer actually, and the length is a little bit less than 1.40 meters. However, good folding mechanism here, right and also left, and then you can easily here, wow, it's a great folding mechanism, Look at that. And then we have to the front seats. Yeah, it's about 1.85 meters or 73 inches. Actually, also remarkable, here underneath the trunk cover, there's also a lot of space still. And just take a look at that. When I fold the seat, here, you see how the front seat is moving forward. Wow. And then when I put this back, like this, it goes backward. So yeah, this car is full of tech. Engine lineup is now fully focused on the 2-liter 4-cylinders, both petrol and diesel. There is a 6-cylinder diesel announced for later on, but so far not big news on that. And here we have the GLC 300, available as rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive 4MATIC. And here it produces 258 horsepower in the all-wheel drive version. So 6.2 seconds is the acceleration figure, and this is also probably the most bought engine and overall. Interesting is that the plug-in hybrids are also both available for petrol and diesel, and offer actually great pure electric range, so some realistic 100 kilometers or 60 miles. This is also a unique feature for the GLC and also the C-Class, where the GLC is sharing the platform with. Welcome to Thomas's Driving Lounge with the Mercedes GLC new generation. Before we head to the motorway to the German Autobahn, just in a minute, I want to start showing you the rear axle steering in a proper use case. I already told you that parking in and out is so much easier. And here now, for example, when I'm doing this U-turn, with some vehicles, I have to go like, straight and take like the long way around. With this vehicle, I'm going to try if I can directly make it here on the road, which is, of course, easier and quicker in a way. But can this vehicle actually do that? Does the rear axle steering do that? Because it reduces the turning circle by 1 meter. Wow, look, that wasn't even close. Really amazing. So in this respect here, the new GLC has a big advantage if you compare it to the competitors. You can argue about, sporty driving versus the BMW X3 and so on. But here this U-turn thing and parking in and out, basement garage and so on, is so much easier with the rear axle steering. You get it in a package together with the air suspension. So it is kind of expensive, of course, to have this setup here, air suspension plus rear axle steering. But if you want to make this vehicle unique and the fact that it does stand out technology-wise, this is one of the key elements for that. Very, very interesting. Now we're already on the, heading to the motorway. Left side already begins, but there's a construction site. But when this road here leads to the motorway, the construction site will be over. Here, let's say city speeds, 50 kilometers an hour, 30 miles an hour. You already feel it's very, very silent. And the air suspension, by the way, is not set on a, let's say, GLE comparable thing, that it has this very soft floating ride. The GLC is rather set on a sportier note, not super sporty, but we don't have the biggest wheels on this vehicle either, but it doesn't feel floaty, so when you ask me, would I immediately feel that this is an air suspension? Rather not. I can see it here, that I can pump up the vehicle, yes, but I wouldn't immediately say this is like a floaty air suspension. Let's go to the sports mode, and then we can do first acceleration onto the motorway. From 60 kilometers an hour, let's go. 120. Yeah, that was 60 to 120. It's hard to pick up the speed here on camera because it's kind of hidden here behind the steering wheel. So camera-wise, it's not a good position. That's why I told you the speed actually. Now from 100, when we are already at speed, let's see. 120. 140, yeah. So that was 100 to 140. Quick enough, definitely, with this 2-liter 4-cylinder. It doesn't give you this, big sonorous 6-cylinder feeling or something. Sound emulation here is actually quite decent as well. So I would say you have enough speed. This vehicle here available in this very engine with rear-wheel drive or with all-wheel drive, and both will actually be fine. Now about noise insulation. This is a good motorway speed, 130 kilometers an hour. So 75 miles an hour. And so far insulation is very good. However, we have a very windy situation here outside today, so considering that's really well done. And the suspension is then also a little bit stiffer in that sport mode. Really keeping me very well settled here on the motorway, so I don't feel the disadvantages of an SUV. Here also 160 kilometers an hour now, pretty quick when I do some like left to right here. Of course, then I feel it is a SUV, so a sedan would not move, you know, in the same kind of way, but still, it feels very planted and settled on the road. A very relaxed motorway feeling indeed. And this upright seating position also helps very much, especially in recent Mercedes vehicles, because we talked about it in some reviews. I am not 100% happy with Mercedes seat ergonomics recently, especially in their normal cars like sedans and so on. And in the SUVs it's not such a problem because you have this higher seating position, therefore the hip is positioned a little bit differently, and like how the legs go off the seat basically, and this really helps in comfort.
I'm sorry. Can you say that again, please?
Tell me a joke.
2 Wi-Fi engineers got married. The reception was fantastic.
Oh, you got that joke? 2 Wi-Fi engineers got married. The reception was fantastic. Not bad. Not bad. Yeah, sometimes, of course, when I'm talking about... When I'm talking... When I'm talking about... cancel. When I'm talking about Mercedes in the vehicle, then of course the Hey Mercedes thing is being picked up.
Where do you want to go?
Yeah, there we go.
Can you say it again, please?
No, I'm just happy where I am. Thank you. Paused. Yeah. So yeah, stuff like this happens. By the way, the steering wheel. Yes, I don't like the hashtag capacitive BS trend we have here on the steering wheel to control everything. However, the steering itself, from the size and the sportiness, is awesome. So I have great control over the vehicle. I really like that. I also feel the steering itself, when you compare previous generation and this one here, well, that was a mix between predecessor and previous, you know, the previous. Ah, interesting. Language is evolving. So the previous generation or the predecessor had more like a more vague steering wheel. It was more or less dead in the early degree angles. This steering here in the new generation is set to a sportier note. Maybe also has something to do with the rear axle steering setup. Above 60 kilometers an hour or 40 miles an hour, there's not the effect anymore that it steers in the opposite direction at the rear axle, but in a parallel one, giving you more stability, but of course also changes a little bit of the handling in general.
What would you like to do?
Nothing, thank you, goodbye. Next time I think I'm going to deactivate it while reviewing or something. Yeah, engine performance is actually good. So when I'm switching, let's see how easy it is to switch to the CarPlay here, for example, and making CarPlay map bigger. Yeah, I think overall it works. Sometimes the infotainment system can be a little bit laggy. Yeah, but overall does the job. Most of the time I do use Apple CarPlay or Android Auto anyway. Here, of course, in this new generation, both available wired and wireless. So, yeah, back to the steering wheel. I think it steers in a very sporty way. I have a very good grip of that one, and I love the size. So, the sporty steering input is really great. There's no dead-zone area. Commands are being transported to the road, and the overall steering feeling is very natural as well. So to me, Mercedes wasn't leading in steering feel. I think rather the Porsche and Audi steerings were better there. But here in the new generation, GLC and also some other new cars by Mercedes, they picked up for the steering feel. So really improved that one. Very happy with the overall steering feel and characteristic now here. And that also adds to this experience. You feel very well connected to the vehicle. One thing to consider when you're taller, as tall as me is, here in this front cockpit, since it's this SUV higher seating position, you're fine with comfort and seating comfort. But the GLC, same counts for the C-Class in general, because they share the platform. Here in the front you feel rather a little bit cramped as for your right knee, or it would be your left knee then when you have the right-hand drive version in the UK, because you see this whole cockpit kind of encloses you. It's more this sporty, sensual shape, everything, and that looks great and feels sporty at the same time, very luxurious somehow. But then again, it also, you're losing space, so you just have to be aware of that if that's a problem for you, or maybe take a test seat at a dealer or something. We have one more acceleration to the next Autobahn position. Here also very nice in this corner. Now there's a lot of traffic to see about that. Also can check out the blind spot monitor. There it is. It appears quite late with this red triangle in the side mirror. Then you also have a visual warning too, if you're setting the turning indicator. Yeah, here also very nicely done then. Safely onto the left lane. That wasn't even powering all the way through. I'm still driving in the sport mode all the time. I wasn't realizing that, it would make any negative impact. But here the C mode, the comfort mode, then again sets the suspension on comfort. Then it's a little bit more comfortable. Yeah, but once again, I think when you offer an air suspension in this segment, I would have tuned it more to a little bit more floaty ride, because then we say like, hey, we are the ones in that segment that have air suspension, and we offer you that special floaty, carpet-alike ride. Yeah, but they didn't do it because they wanted to have a little sporty element with it. It's not rough in any case, so the suspension is awesome. But just my personal preference is when I buy air suspension, especially by Mercedes, I expect a setup like in the GLE, where you have this very soft floaty ride, and this sets it apart. Not the case here. Still a great suspension, still very comfortable, and here in the comfort mode I feel, let's say, a little bit of it when I'm going over longer waves and so on. And however, for the motorway and faster driving, this makes it an ideal vehicle. The waves are being evened out. At the same time, it doesn't shake up as being an SUV. So that's then, this thing. If you consider GLB versus GLC, what difference does it make, especially in driving? Yes, we know the GLB, being the front-wheel driven platform, has more space on the inside because of the shorter hood. This one has the longer hood. Past models, because you could also get more than a 4-cylinder. This is now not an argument anymore, basically. But this one here, being the rear-wheel driven platform, has more dynamic character when going out of the corners, because even the all-wheel drive has a rear-wheel bias. That makes it sportier when accelerating out of the corner. That's actually pretty cool, like that. And the whole ride and interior is set more on a luxurious note. That's why it's also more expensive. And things like an air suspension or rear axle steering, you only get for the GLC and not for the GLB. So the GLB would be the thing, more the family focus, more price performance, if that counts for a Mercedes overall. And the GLC more this, space is not that important. You've seen that the rear legroom is also not abundant. And then more this luxurious features, technology focus, all the special tech features we have here inside. So definitely the more upmarket vehicle, that is the difference. Assistant systems, let's try them out. First of all, here, adaptive cruise control, set it to the car in front of me. Very nicely done. And the good thing is that the active steering assist can be deactivated if you don't like that, if you find it too intrusive or something. And I really wonder, you can set it here in the infotainment system. So here I can turn it on, then it's the active one. And in that case then, the car is being kept in the lane by itself. And that is very smoothly done, actually pretty cool. Let's keep it on the right lane here. Now let's see if I want to steer off myself a little bit here. There, you see this smooth reaction. Very well done. Wow, pretty cool. So indeed, flawless assistance systems and surprisingly sporty ride here of the new GLC generation. same time a little bit more luxurious. The Mercedes GLC Coupé is here in the all-new generation. We're going to drive it with the German Autobahn special here today with Thomas and Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go here with the spectral blue vehicle, typical Thomas blue color. It's among my favorite colors, definitely. AMG line, although the avant-garde trim in the Coupé already looks kind of like this. Just the AMG line has a sportier accentuation in the lower part here. Optional digital light. Normal LED would be standard. These ones here have more high beam performance, and you can also see these extra blue accentuations on the inside. That's a beautiful work indeed. Then going towards the side profile, 4.76 m or 187 inches, just a couple of centimeters longer than the Coupé because the spoilers are different. And of course this typical side silhouette here with the roofline, falling roofline. Sometimes SUV Coupés look kind of awkward a little bit. I think here, especially with this new generation, they managed a very beautiful side profile. And also, when you talk at home and you want to go for the Coupé, just tell, your partner, this one is the more aerodynamic, the more efficient one. So you then might save some fuel with this body form here. Then the wheels, in this case 20-inch in black. Of course, different stylings are available and also different sizes. We're going to test the comfort here later on the Autobahn. And you can see here in this AMG line also painted wheel arches fitting to the exterior color. Side steps, anyone? I found them really cool looking. I love them. And also these ones fulfill an aerodynamic function. They optimize the wind flow. Why not go for them then, right? Then technology-wise, sport suspension would be standard for the Coupé here. And then you can optionally go for an air suspension, both axles, and that one comes in a package with a rear axle steering up to 4.5 degrees in the opposite direction than the front wheels, reducing the turning circle by a meter. Towards the rear, I think in the shape, the overall shape, they found a very beautiful look for this SUV Coupé, also here with the integrated rear spoiler. However, what I'm kind of confused of is you have these beautiful lights here, the signature, but then in the middle part, I would expect the light strip that goes through, but then this middle part here is not illuminated, and they used it in a lot of their new vehicles now. Also, Autogefühl fake exhaust police alert, because in the lower part they are pure fake exhaust. And you've maybe followed our recent coverage of our fake exhaust fight, and a lot of manufacturers we could convince now to go back, and some all new models at different manufacturers have actually erased the fake exhaust now, so we will keep fighting for you. In the front, the turning indicators are defo fancy, aren't they? Turning indicators in the rear? Oh, now that's disappointing, isn't it? Why have they done that? Well, when you open the hatch, then the outside ones are still active. That's one of the reasons, but I think they could have done better, couldn't they? And look at that. Kind of a light start up of this digital light. This is also a special feature. Sometimes you ask me, what is your favorite configuration? Well, here it's very obvious, exactly like this. This spectral blue on the exterior, then with the side step, and the bright Art Deco ambitex on the interior perforated. I would just take it also with the seat cooling. That's not equipped with this vehicle. That then would be the final configuration. But I think especially this combination, bright interior to the blue exterior, is just awesome. And also as GLC 300, since we cannot get a 3-liter 6-cylinder petrol here anymore for this one. The key fob, I love it. It's really heavy in your hand, but it's not too big. Really high class. Then door closing sound. That is, definitely not that premium, I have to say, really. Inside of the door, then, however, really good from the build quality here. High-grade leatherette. The lower part here, however, is hardpack. And then here, the seat controls, they do not give you a physical feedback. I hope at some point they fix it again. Seat heating would be there, and also seat cooling if you went for that option, because these seats here are the bright one, or beige, or almost white actually, maybe ivory. Okay, now I've mentioned all colors, whatever you want to call it. These here Art Deco ambitex, this is high-grade leatherette, animal-free and perforated, also works with seat cooling, and it's really soft. Interesting. AMG line, steering wheel with 2 horizontal fins then. The thing is, if you do not go for an AMG line steering wheel at Mercedes, I found the capacitive BS buttons on the steering wheel a little bit easier to control than these ones. The AMG line steering wheel, however, looks way cooler. Then here with 189 or 6'2", still have a lot of headroom over my head, and it's a very comfortable seating position, actually all SUV you need. And steering wheel control is here also electric. Interior cockpit overview, my favorite feature are these air vents. Yes, at some point here they're not 100% straight, that's what I criticize, but however what I love is this one. Beautiful, these clicking sounds. Yeah, and sometimes I even play with them while driving. Not that you would see that in the driving part. Here and then is there some carbon fiber deco element, that's cool. But here, so much black piano lacquer, I think they need to work on this one. In the E-Class, they have done that now. And then the AMG line steering wheel, which is, as I said, visually the better one. And of course, when it gets darker here now, they're the experts of ambient lighting. That looks fantastic here and here. Also in the small vents. And also when you change the temperature, it goes to red or goes to blue, depending on how you switch the temperature. So that's a very cool idea. And we have more also at the inside of the doors, front and also in the rear. Head-up display, speed and also some GPS information, but only if you use the car internal GPS. As for the digital instruments, I actually like them, just that the speed in the top part could be a little bit larger or centralized. And then, yeah, you've seen sometimes you miss these capacitive buttons at the steering wheel when you want to control something like here. And you maybe also saw our consumption here, 7.5 liters on 100 kilometers. So that's about 30 mpg US or 35 mpg UK. MBUX infotainment, their own GPS map is usable. But if you don't like that, you always have this Apple CarPlay hotkey in the top part there, both wireless or wired. You can choose that also with Android Auto. And to deactivate these new speed warnings, by the way, that are now EU law, there it is, when I turn on the engine, I can press in the top left part here. So when you exceed the speed, that you have a 3 beeping chime. Or you can also, same function like this, also hold the mute button at the steering wheel. That would be the alternative. And temperature control is always in lower part, no physical control. But for a touchscreen solution, it is at least relatively straightforward, also here with the air vent strength. Middle console, slide this open. Cup holders, they do not hold heavy and high bottles tight enough, so they need to rework that. USB chargers, in the front is inductive charging pad. So overall, actually, a lot of space. And my favorite split opening for the armrest, hashtag ASMR. Okay, one more time. There we go. And talking about ASMR or car SMR. And of course, yeah, we often also do it in our YouTube Shorts channel. You should also subscribe to that. Rear doors, here also the leatherette top and the lower part, really soft, that's good. And then the space here, we do have a significant middle tunnel. But the good thing is here, for my knees, this recess works very well, so I can sit here as a tall adult. And things also with the Coupé, does it work headroom-wise? Yeah, of course, in the GLC SUV you have a little bit more headroom, but here it still works. So you can go for it without much compromise. Following down this one, by the way, here like a smartphone holder, but I'm not sure who would use that. And then cup holders, and they're actually quite fancy. And I want to show you this once again. Look at the front seats, and when I then release them from the rear, because at this moment they would be a little bit too far in the front. Now when I go around and press this one, look at that. They go forward automatically, that we have this folding mechanism fully, and then they can also be moved back because the head restraints that are then a little bit lower than this recess. And then also when I push them back again, you can see here, they automatically go back again. This is a very clever mechanism. The trunk or the boot is at 545 liters, 55 liters less than with the GLC SUV. However, you have this easy access here, like an estate, but you still have this special exterior. Just here in height, you lose a little bit comparing to the Coupé, comparing to the SUV. Sorry, again, in the Coupé, you lose a little bit of height right here comparing to the SUV. Yeah, you easily get confused. What's cool here in the width? More than 1 meter or 40 inches in width, that's awesome. And also the length is 1 meter or 40 inches, so very well usable indeed. And also look at that here. You can easily fold down the seats just like this. This is actually a perfect mechanism. I can just applaud them for that. Under the hood, 2-liter 4-cylinder petrol and diesel, and also plug-in hybrids, both for petrol and diesel, with significant pure electric range, like realistic 80 kilometers or 50 miles. Here, this one, however, pure petrol engine, GLC 300 is the main engine, so to speak. In the US, also available as rear-wheel drive, or then all-wheel drive. This is also the all-wheel drive version here. And then it comes with 255 horsepower in the US or 258 horsepower here in Germany. 3 horsepower, really? Why the difference? Yeah, it's always about the different regulations for the emissions and so on. And acceleration figure is 6.2 seconds. When you have the all-wheel drive version here before a GLC, interesting, always a rear-wheel bias, 30% front, 70% distribution to the rear. It's Thomas's driving lounge on the German Autobahn, and let's start here in the sport mode, GLC 300, and let's accelerate it out. Let's go. 100, 120. So that was like 50 to 120. Pretty quick enough, definitely. Acceleration figure 0 to 100 or 62 miles an hour is just around 6 seconds, 6.2 seconds. So I think this is also the sweet spot engine, so to speak. Yes, still a 2-liter 4-cylinder, but they don't offer the 6-cylinder petrol engine for this one here anymore. So this one here will be worldwide also the most important engine. You don't have this 6-cylinder growling, but power-wise, definitely this is enough. Here it's also equipped with the air suspension in this case, together with the rear axle steering. When we're driving faster here now, then you don't feel the rear axle steering because it's steering the rear axle in the parallel direction at lower speeds. It is a difference actually. I'm soon going to talk about that, or when we drive a little bit slower. First of all, here driving faster, noise insulation, you also get a extra noise insulation package, either with a high trim or as an extra. And here, yeah, it's really very good. So it is a high build SUV, and yes, if you compare a sedan then with the same technology, it will be less noisy. So you just stand more against the wind. But considering it's here this mid-size SUV or compact SUV for the US taste, I think it's very good noise insulation, as we know from Mercedes in general. And also in the sport mode, this air suspension here gets a little bit stiffer, so gives me more control over the vehicle. This is the good thing here about the air suspension, it's just adaptive. But still here in the sport mode and 20-inch wheels, it still remains comfortable. You do feel a notable difference here when I switch back to the comfort mode. Good thing also that I don't have to press here and then again in the screen. I can really use the buttons here that it switches through the modes, so that's not that. Here, look at that. I can control it and still look ahead what's going on. If I would need to activate it first and then click something on the screen, like we know, quite often nowadays on the car market, it would be even more distracting. Here in the comfort mode, the air suspension gets a little bit softer. If you want the softest ride, you would go for smaller wheels. Here with the 20-inch wheels, you feel that you carry large wheels. That adds some sportiness, but takes away a little bit of the comfort. If you ask me about the difference, GLC Coupé versus GLC SUV, it's indeed more about the suspension choice and the wheel choice. So you know that the GLC Coupé starts with the sport suspension, and yes, then it would be stiffer and sportier than the SUV, but you can go for the sport suspension with the SUV, you can put big wheels on the SUV and so on. So it really depends more on which suspension do you pick and which wheel size, and then it's more the difference in the driving quality. That the roof is a little bit cut off there, you don't really feel that while driving, so that's I think neglectable. However, aerodynamics is better here with the GLC Coupé, so that means when you're driving steady speed motorway and even a little bit higher speed and so on, it is indeed better aerodynamics. That's also funny, isn't it? Subscribers know what's coming now. Switching the motorways, that's always a lovely section here. So the transition between two autobahns, between two Autobahnen, we would say actually the correct plural in German, because then you can retest their driving agility. Here the road is a little bit uneven, and there I feel more difference, by the way, when I go to comfort suspension here now. That's definitely better. Here still, because of the 20-inch wheels, we do get some bumps inside. And now I go back to the sport mode again. And then we can... What the hell? What is this? It's like standing still on a motorway transition. I don't know what this is supposed to mean. And here now we can switch the lanes. Okay, this guy also doesn't know. Right or left now? It's not Sunday. It's Saturday at the filming of this driving party, but sometimes strange things are going on the road. Now here, really nice in the corner. Look at that. It's an SUV, but still feels very agile, especially here in that sporty mode. Nice. Now we accelerate out again. We will bias from the all-wheel drive, pin it down. Sound emulation a little bit. That's actually really smooth. Also how we enter out the corner. Blind spot monitor, also with acoustic warning when I hit down the turning indicator. Oh, with these wheels here, it gets kind of rough. Now there's another bump, like another... yeah, there we go. Yeah, this is like always a famous bump here on the motorway where I can test the suspension. Yeah, there it was. And another one. There we go. Yeah, I feel, indeed, I would advise you to go for smaller wheels, because that does cost you some comfort already here with the 20-inch wheels indeed. But wow, the driving experience is really good. And also here, especially in this generation, you always ask me, previous generation to this generation, because most of the car buyers of a vehicle will come from the previous generation. Here they worked especially on the steering. And so far, Mercedes steering fields were always a little bit boring, or maybe just for running straight and so on. But here, no dead zone area, very fine feeling of the steering control, also smooth transition to the outside areas. I love the steering feel here now with the recent Mercedes models. That's so well done indeed. And in the sport mode, also a little bit more feedback, and in the comfort mode, it gets a little bit softer. So that depends on just what you prefer. And you can always set your individual mode, and then, for example, say like, hey, I want a soft suspension, but I want the steering to be stiffer here. That when you put the eye, of course, better when you set it. Then when stationary, you can go here to this options menu, and then you can really individualize your driving settings. That's a good thing to do. Then also assistance systems, setting it here in the construction side lane. Let's see if the active lane keeping assist also works here, because that's really putting it to the test. So a little bit more to the right maybe at this point, but it does keep the lane. So level 2, not meant that you keep your hands off the steering wheel. And of course the normal white lines would be the ideal. Okay, I don't have 100% trust in that one here in this construction lane. So just in case, I did take over the steering myself now. So now here again. But so far, when the car is realizing everything, actually quite smooth. So overall, these assistance systems are very elaborate. Also, I've heard the blind spot monitor, but never trust in it 100% yet. So maybe at some point we'll get to the point, but not yet so far. Yeah, I need to play with these clicking sounds here while driving. Sorry about that. And now construction lane is over. Let's accelerate one more time. 102. 130 and 140. Yeah, so already when we are at speed, good acceleration shown. So it's actually a good motorway vehicle. Also the long-term comfort. Here these Artico ambidextrous seats are also very soft, as I said, in the interior part. And you can also get them with the cooling option. I think I would go for that one when I'm living in a hot state, or where when you live somewhere where you have really hot summers and so on. And also still very flexible. You can always go back to the comfort mode and have it a little bit more relaxed. So yes, the only thing I could find is I would go not for the biggest wheels. So maybe have like 19-inch as a design compromise or something. Or maybe even 18-inch if you want the best comfort. But other than that, also very good in the driving part here overall. Hey, we can drive even faster here. Let's see, German Autobahn, really the top speed. So far, oh, there's the next limitation coming, so let's see how much can we score here. 170, still okay from the wind noise, 180 kilometers an hour. there's the next limit. You have to go down. So high-speed test. Also how calm and collected the car is in here in the lane change and so on. Let's do one more at 120, a little bit quicker one here in sport mode. You see here, it doesn't shake up at all. Doesn't really feel negative in an SUV way at all. And now let's do one more time in comfort mode, a quick lane change. Let's see. I've seen that, it shakes up a little more, it was a little bit softer, but still you have a good controlled feeling over the vehicle. That's always the case here with the GLC. Can I name this vehicle in 10 seconds? Let's go. Mercedes-AMG GLC 63 SE Performance 4MATIC Plus. The most powerful Mercedes SUV of all time. How does it perform? And why have Mercedes picked this specific engine concept here? We're going to find out with Thomas and Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go with the Mercedes-AMG GLC 63 SE Performance. Mercedes-AMG GLC 63 SE Performance 4MATIC Plus. Yes, now I finally got it. Yeah, at least we could produce one blooper with that, right? And we're also going to find out the differences between GLC 63 and the GLC 43 that will be launched at the same time. I'm going to take you on a tour of all you need to know here in the front. Then here with the vertical fins, Panamericana grille that is more wider here in the lower part, and also these really dramatic lower graphics left and right. This one is also equipped with the AMG Night package. That means a lot of high gloss black all over the vehicle, also at the side mirror caps. And this specific vehicle here is, by the way, first of all, high-tech silver Magno, a matte paint. And it's also equipped with the optional aerodynamic package that, for example, adds this more dramatic effect here on the lower part already. 4.72 meters or 186 inches is the length of a GLC, and here the AMG version start with 19-inch wheels for the 43 model and 20-inch for the 63 model. However, these here are the optional 21-inch wheels, even more massive, cool styling in the Spider AMG style, red brake calipers as contrast. And suspension-wise, it's interesting that they do not offer air suspension like in the previous generation or like they do in the current generation for the normal GLC. But here they always go as standard with an adaptive suspension without air. But then they say they have such a wide span between comfort and sportiness that they do not need the air suspension. Plus, here in the 63 they have the anti-tilt control and also now the rear axle steering in this generation. However, in the normal Mercedes GLC, up to 4.5 degrees in the opposite direction than the front wheels. Here it's limited to 2.5 degrees because they always equipped with wider tires, most obviously. So they're a little bit limited in the rear axle steering. And it steers in the opposite direction until 100 kilometers an hour or 60 miles an hour. That's a very high threshold indeed. Then it goes in the parallel direction. And with all of these different measures, actually, we're going to find out if it's really true that it does drive comfortable and super sporty at the same time. And will I miss the air suspension in the driving part? We're going to find out very soon. In the rear, very massive, especially towards the lower part, we'll have more high gloss black. And then Autogefühl fake exhaust alloy, because on the inside you can see, there you see the rear exhaust and the outer tips are just for beauty purposes and more beauty purposes also here in the top part. And then you have an even larger spoiler here. It also serves aerodynamic purposes indeed, not only just for the beauty actually or for more aggressive look. It adds more downforce, yes. However, that also means higher consumption. Yeah, looks funny, my shadow in the vehicle, right? You always ask me about the regions where we are filming these vehicles. Of course, they are varying especially also for you, that you have a lot of great images in the background. And this is one of my favorite regions in Spain, actually, the Montsant region of the Montsant Mountains, also the so-called Priorat region, where they have a lot of wineries here and so on. So very beautiful, especially, you know, these mountains here. And yeah, as far as I've read, this actually former sea ground, actually, of course, you know, millions of years ago. But yeah, it's really beautiful, especially at the top of the mountains, and you have great roads here as well. Turning indicators in the front replaces the top daytime running light. That looks quite fancy, doesn't it? Turning indicators in the rear, well, it's right here. Not too bad, but not as cool as in the front, isn't it? And now just dream for a moment that this is your house and these are the two vehicles that are parking in front of your house. Okay, dream is over. Let's talk about the colors. This is here Patagonia Red, also very striking red color. And this one here is Graphite Gray Magno, also here a matte paint. And talking about active aerodynamics, here in the front grille, both in the wide top part here and also in the lower part, it can be shut for better aerodynamics. In the lower part, we can even demonstrate that to you, because when you turn on the engine or turn it off, then directly opens or closes. In the upper part, that only works in when you reach a certain threshold of cooling that is being needed or not. Key fob here with AMG logo, and also at the back part, it's really heavy, so good quality door closing sound. That doesn't sound too good, but once again the Magno paint, I love that, just to touch and feel it. Then inside of the doors, everything wrapped tightly, sadly a lot of high gloss black, and also this one button design here for the seat heating, for example, and for the memory seating. So design-wise, it looks cool, but then when you touch fingerprints and so on, it's actually not that cool then. Well, what's nice are these AMG entry badges, and also with the floor mats. And what I also love about, standard for the 63 version, here the microfiber steering wheel, at least at the sides. And then you have hashtag capacitive BS buttons on the steering wheel, also not that good to control. But then again, here, when switching the driving modes, that is fairly easy. Then about the seats, you get a standard sport seat, and then you can optionally go for these performance seats. They are a little bit stiffer, but also have more bolstering at the side here then. So, it depends. So they hold you tighter, but they're also less comfortable. And usually standard would also be the Dynamica microfiber at the inside of the seats. This is here the optional animal skin pack. If you go for the microfiber, it's also giving you more comfort and more raciness at the same time. Then here, 189, 6'2", still a lot of headroom left. This one is the version here now without a panoramic roof. You could still go for one. And the steering wheel here goes up and down, in and out. Need some ignition for that. Ooh, here we go. And then we can also see how these drive selectors and so on are illuminated. They can also hear how the sound actuator plays together with the rear exhaust. Yeah, kind of a little bit weird, but while driving, actually it will be a different experience. It's coming up soon. Interior cockpit overview, vertical layout of the infotainment. Here we can get some carbon fiber decouplement, that's fancy. And I always love here the clicking sounds of these turbine air vents. And the EU speed warning you deactivate here on the top left of the infotainment system, or press and hold the volume button. It's a new law actually, that new vehicles always get a warning chime with 3 chimes when you exceed the speed even by 1 km/h. Digital instruments offer special views, not only sport but also super sport then here, or a track pace view where you can even see more telemetry and so on. Oh, there we go, for example, when I change the steering angle. And here you also have a special AMG performance section in the infotainment system, like the energy flow to the battery. You have driving information here with the Newton meters, vehicle. There you can see how the suspension is working. Engine, of course, more engine data with the power output and so on. And here IWC, this is then this analog clock I used in the front of the video, or in the beginning of the video. And this is then the stopwatch. It could be, for example, then for a lap timer and so on. Middle console, too much black piano lacquer for my taste. Inside, much space. The cup holders here, they don't hold high bottles enough. USB-C charging, inductive charging pad. And I like this split opening here, more space underneath. always with a nice closing sound, right? Rear doors, also with soft touch in the top part and also here, just hardening in the lower part. And then these performance seats here are not playing well as for the legroom. So, yeah, it's really tight then if a tall driver is sitting in the front. Almost no space, so if you stick with the normal sport seats, this will be better, or also in the normal GC version and so on. Headroom here is no problem. There, the Coupé would have some compromise, but it's still quite okay then. And overall, it is actually fairly comfortable in the rear. Again, the performance seats here, these optional AMG performance seats, neither that practical for front and rear seating. They just look cool. As for the trunk or the boot, let's take a look. The basic dimensions here, in width and in the length, about 1 meter or 40 inches, that's good. But here, when you have the 63 version with the e-performance battery, then you have this additional step in here. Just you can lift this one here for maybe like a small charging cable or something, but this car will probably never see a charging cable, I predict. And you can also fold the seats, and that's a very good mechanism here, right and left, and they directly fold flat. And it gives you like 118 meters or 71 inches, so loading volume, pretty cool. If you would have later the Coupé version maybe, that's also coming out, then of course you have some kind of compromise because this area here is a little bit flatter. Now about the engine. We really have to discuss it about the pros and cons. First of all, let's lift the hood. Looks quite cool already. This is a 2-liter 4-cylinder engine. Sacrilege, yes, the same as in the C63. Then you have here the additional dome strut for more torsional rigidity in the front. Very interesting. Here the system output is 680 horsepower, 480 horsepower from the combustion engine, plus 200 horsepower from the electric drive. There's an electric motor at the rear axle that is directly powering the rear axle. 2 gears or 2-speed, and that means it also runs over the whole spectrum. It doesn't shut off at some point or something, and it selects the second gear at about 140 kilometers an hour, so like 80 miles an hour. What do they do with this system and why? First of all, the reason for it basically is emission laws in the European Union. So they try to keep the CO2 output and the consumption low on paper. But the problem is that usually you have high displacement, low horsepower. Does usually mean not so high consumption. Here, of course, they do low displacement, high horsepower. Yeah, and in real life, that usually doesn't work out well as for the consumption. We will test, of course, both in our driving part today. The efficiency and the consumption when you just drive normally, and of course, the performance, boosting it out and so on. 3.5 seconds is the acceleration figure to 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles an hour. That's amazing. And they use F1 technology for the battery. Liquid cooled with a capacity of 4.8 kilowatt hours net. Everyone else gives you the gross figure. I try to go into the net figure because that's the realistic one, the usable one. That's of course like nothing. So you can charge this car externally, like here on the driver's side, but it doesn't really make any sense. So it is literally a plug-in hybrid, but with that low capacity of the battery, you have electric driving moments, but not for a longer period of time, maybe like 10 kilometers or 6 miles or something, and that's it. The battery is used as a performance boost battery that you always have the full performance, and it's then being constantly charged again by the by the real motor, by the combustion engine. Yeah, and that is of course not good for efficiency. Everything is trimmed on performance, and then you have to ask yourself, if this is done for efficiency reasons and CO2 output and so on to, for the law and emissions, blah, 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 but then again, it's for performance only and it's not really efficient, why would they do that? But we're going to find out in the driving part. You see, I'm very skeptical about this concept, but I can already tell you, because I drove some part already, the driving part is really something else. You will be looking forward to it. I can give you my word on that. Interesting that difference 63 to the 43. Here you have the anti-tilt control at the rear axle. That's an extra to keep it more, keep it more upright. It comes it's an extra. It comes standard with the 63, but it does not come for the 43. And also the overdrive distribution is different. 63 here, more variable, up to 50% of the power to the front. In the 43, you have a fixed ratio, 30% front, 70% in the rear. This one here, the 63, will still remain rear-wheel biased in the all-wheel drive nevertheless. And the acceleration figure, whereas this one here, 3.5 seconds, the 43 model would be at 4.8 seconds. So this one here, the quickest, the most powerful SUV Mercedes has ever built, with this very peculiar or unique concept. But does it work in driving? I want to find out. Everyone ready? Launch control, acceleration, let's go. Whoop, that's 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour. Whew! Wow, the seat belt is still tight. Whew. And you also heard the LIA meter. There's always a great indicator for extreme acceleration. That was a rocket. So most powerful SUV of all time? Definitely is. Whoa. Whew. That gives you the adrenaline rush. Of course, you can always use here the shifting pedals. Then shift down yourself before. So the electric boost was definitely helping us, but it didn't feel unnatural or something. So really inbound with the vehicle. So performance-wise, yes, definitely. There, the electric boost defo helps. And now let's attack some corners. Sound actuator is actually recording the sound from the exhaust and then recording that bass line, so to speak, and then creating live the sound out of it. So it's not a direct recording, but it is the live source where they create the signal from it. And that's why it's also really aligned to what we do actually with the engine. You of course hear some crackles and pops from the exhaust itself really. Yeah, my favorite thing is really using the shifting pedals myself. This one here, the 63 model, also exclusively has the anti-tilt control, so the car stays more upright. It doesn't tilt at all in the Sports Plus mode. The suspension is also set on a stiffer note. It's the adaptive suspension that is ruling very well, both on the comfortable side and also on the sporty side. That's why they also say, hey, we don't need an air suspension. But actually the air suspension would give you more comfort. But this one is, for a very sporty one, still somewhat comfortable. And of course it delivers you great sportiness here together with the 21-inch wheels, large wheels, also very wide. Therefore the rear axle steering cannot rule that wide as in the normal Mercedes model. Here in the AMG model we still feel something of the air suspension, but they also reduce the degree angle purposely 2.5 degrees because say that's enough and we still want everything to feel naturally. So yes, the normal Mercedes customer should have more flexibility when parking in and out. The AMG customer is supposed to have more natural feeling. And here I feel that the vehicle is super agile, but it doesn't feel unnatural from that rear axle steering, I have to say. And also this electric boost, they have integrated here very well. And I feel somehow that in the GLC it feels more natural than in the AMG GT 63, the 4-door we've driven on the racetrack, and also in the S63 with the 8-cylinder, for example. They also have this performance hybrid. But here I feel that the integration is done best so far, that it's really smooth. And the funny thing is, you have always that instant torque. It's almost like driving an electric vehicle as for the performance. But then again, you still have this feedback from the combustion engine. It feels somehow cooler than just driving just an electric vehicle. Wow. Yeah, I realize when I'm starting to have a lot of fun when Leah is trying to hold on to something. You could see her hand grabbing the side handle. Wow. This is so much fun. And I even feel that this, it is the very same system I used in the C63, but of course in the sedan it's more sacrilege than here in the SUV, and I somehow feel that this whole system is fitting more to the SUV. So, wow. I mean, I'm really skeptical about this system, and I generally don't like the way they're doing that, getting away from more cylinders, and I don't think it makes sense on the efficiency side. It just doesn't. And I really like to have a more natural experience with, even a naturally aspirated 6 or 8 cylinder. I just love that. But performance-wise, you have to say it drives absolutely phenomenal. You really have to admit that. And also suspension-wise, this is... Oh my gosh. Holy moly. This is fantastic. I mean, I'm not sure if I ever had so much fun in a sporty SUV. It's so flawless and smooth, doesn't lean at all, and usually the way is that, for example, when you drive like a Porsche Cayenne or Macan or something, then you always know okay, that's the maximum they can do with an SUV, and it drives fantastic, but okay, the sports car is always better. And in a way, it will always be like that, because you can't deny physics. But the way this car engages you here, this SUV engages you for this kind of high body type, is absolutely fantastic. The rear axle steering, by the way, switches to the parallel direction, then just, like 0.7 degrees or something, when you drive more than 100 kilometers an hour or 60 miles an hour. That's a very high threshold. That means when I'm driving here quite slow, then the rear axle is really ruling with, in the opposite direction than the front wheels, just in the parallel direction above 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour. When you're driving really slowly or need to use a roundabout in a city or something, then it really helps to reduce the turning circle still. And when you're going here, for example, for the comfort mode, then it drives also really silently, less actuation from the sound emulator. And of course, it can also drive pure electric. Then it depends on the speed as well. It switches actually to a second gear when you drive more than 140 kilometers an hour. So 2 gears for the electric motor that is always just powering the rear axle. And here, for example, when I don't need much power, I'm driving all electric. And indeed, due to this 2-gear system, we can always actually have the electric motor running. It doesn't have like a top speed that is separated from the rest of the top speed of the vehicle, for example. That's also a very interesting factor here. So this one can do both, drive all electric and silent, maybe have like a transition in the city or something. And as soon as you want to attack again, you just switch it here at the steering wheel. That's a very practical thing to do. And then you're ready to attack again. Whew, like this. And then switching down the gears is so much fun actually. That's just amazing. So yeah, driving performance-wise, I could do this actually for hours and hours and hours. That's amazing. Even here, if you're a gear higher than you might need to be for optimum performance, I really like to, have this sound experience. And then this is literally a race car. So never experienced it in such a smooth way and sporty at the same time. I mean, yeah, usually Porsche sets the bar here as for the sporty driving experience, and there are a lot of competitors here. But this one is absolutely on another level driving-wise. I think this is the best sporty driving experience I have ever had in an SUV. So why did they choose this performance plug-in hybrid concept? To bring down the consumption on paper, at the same time give you more power, although cylinders are less and the displacement is less. The overall engine, of course, is also smaller. So did it actually work? First of all, as for the efficiency, fuel consumption, when you're not driving in a performance way, so just cruise control, 100, 120 kilometers an hour, 60, 70 miles an hour and so on, even then around 11 liters on 100 kilometers, so like 21 mpg US, 25 mpg UK. And you might remember our recent GLC 300 episode, where we had a consumption of about 7.5 liters on 100 kilometers, more than 30 mpg US and more than 40 mpg UK. This is a massive difference, although it's both case a 2-liter 4-cylinder. So this engine here is incredibly inefficient, extreme high consumption, even at constant and good speeds where you have good conditions for the consumption and so on. So efficiency-wise, it doesn't work. The only thing that it does, it's on paper better for the CO2 output. So yeah, that's always something that can be highly criticized. Then the overall concept of making things even more complicated, putting so much extra weight in it, the battery, this Formula One tech in it, plug-in hybrid drivetrain, and then adding all the electronic helpers and with the suspension and here and there. It's a really overcomplicated vehicle on the one hand. On the other hand, you can say, yes, it is a masterpiece of engineering, what they have achieved here and how many complex things are in this vehicle. It's absolutely incredible. But the question is, does it make sense? Well, we have to say that driving-wise, as I just said in the driving part, this has been one of the most incredible rides in an SUV for me ever. And the performance is without doubt outstanding. Such a great acceleration. There, indeed, the e-boost does help. And the driving agility, what they've done with the suspension and so on, I can't believe how good this SUV is riding. You don't feel it's an SUV. So yes, if you compare it to the C63, using a four-cylinder here is somewhat less sacrilege because C63 has more heritage, it's a performance sedan and so on and so on. But the question is it so good here in the driving because of that e-performance concept or although the e-performance concept? Yeah, that's the thing. So I feel the perfect SUV would be this exact vehicle, also in this generation with the suspension and so on, but then as a 3-liter 6-cylinder. That would to me be the best choice overall, and it would even be lower in the consumption. Yes, you might lose some acceleration figure record and so on, but do customers really need that actually? For me as a car customer, I want a great engine that is reliable and shows performance. And I don't care so much if there's 0.5 seconds acceleration less or more. I want it to be great, good sounding and reliable and fitting to the vehicle and not adding extra weight with additional battery and so on. That's my take. What would you think? So the most interesting thing will be now testing the GLC 43 without that plug-in hybrid concept, but still with most of the features except for the anti-tilt control and a little bit different setup as for the all-wheel drive. So might the GLC 43 be the best spot to pick then in the performance SUV segment? We will find out very soon, because in general I can say this GLC here is actually at this moment probably one of the best Mercedes you can buy from the whole model portfolio.
If you're in the market for an entry-level luxury SUV, the Mercedes GLA and the Mercedes GLB are both fantastic options. But which one is the right one for you? The red pill or the blue pill? I'm AJ, you're watching Autogefühl, and well, look at what we have here. This is the new GLA. And in terms of design, this is already quite different than the GLB. This is a lot more hatchback on stilts, a little bit more crossover in its design language. You can also see that here with the more horizontal headlamps. Of course, you get multi-beam LED. This is an option here in the AMG line, which also means you get the AMG grille with the really cool wings. On the other corner, in the blue corner, the GLB has a more traditional SUV design and a traditional SUV proportion. For example, the shorter headlamps. And while this also has the AMG grille, it's a little bit more wider. And overall, to me, this is a bit more proportional and the one that I like a little bit more. The side profile is also where these two SUVs vary significantly. Of course, the GLB is taller and longer. This is about 4.6 meters long, or about 180 inches. With the AMG line, you also get these nice 19-inch AMG wheels. From my eyes, this is a very good-looking SUV design. You have a nice 3-box structure, sharp, straight lines, this really tall and flat roof line. I also like the contrasting chrome-colored roof rail and the window frame. Also, very neat curved lines on the door as well. Overall, it's a pretty sharp-looking car. What do you think? In contrast, the GLA is smaller at 4.4 meters long, or about 173 inches. Similar AMG line 19-inch wheels, and similar chrome finish along the window frame as well as on the roof rail. But the C-pillar is significantly more curved than the GLB. It's a lot more hatchback to my eyes. In fact, I find these two SUVs kind of similar to the way the GLC and the GLE compare. But which one is your favorite in terms of design? Put it down in the comments below. Wow, the difference in the back is very significant. You can already tell the difference in the height between these two SUVs. And again, further emphasizing the more hatchback design of the GLA and the more upright SUV design of the GLB. Some interesting details, for example, you have these faux exhaust vents, or rather air vents, here on the GLA. And both of these have a diffuser with a cosmetic exhaust tip. As you can see, the key fobs for the two SUVs are identical. And you get keyless entry, so just put the key in your pocket and the door opens. The GLB has a nice, tall, straight and flat front door. It opens fairly wide as well. There's some nice soft touch materials on the top of the door, and there's microfiber inlay over here. Seat controls, seat heating, the window controls and the mirror controls, and a door pocket, although there is no felt lining, just a bit of a rubber lining. There's different seat options. As you can see, what we have here is the microfiber and the Artico, or the MB Tex. This is a synthetic leather, so that's pretty great that you get animal-free interiors. Depending on when you're watching this and which model year SUV you're looking at, the Artico seats did come with seat ventilation, but at the moment, when we're filming this, it's no longer an option. Getting inside the GLB is really easy. Tall door, higher ground clearance means I don't have to stoop down or climb up that much, and getting inside is very easy. And inside, I'm greeted by the fantastic Mercedes interior design, which is one of my favorites. So let's get inside and take a closer look at the details. These specific seats also come with adjustable under-thigh support. The glove box is nice and spacious and also has a little shelf for added practicality. I love interior design, especially the ambient lighting that Mercedes employs, and this reflects so well around this area. This material inlay can also be changed based on the trim level. A lot of glossy black around here, but again, ambient lighting inside these turbine design air vents, which also shine and reflect within this well, really nice. Climate control with physical buttons, so that's really easy to operate while on the move. A nice wide center console with a tambour door, with a wireless phone charger, USB-C. You have slightly adaptive cup holders, not so much, and they're quite shallow, but they can hold like a coffee cup, maybe not a tall water bottle. There's a very shallow little tray here, which doesn't really fit a phone and not much else, so I'm not quite sure what you would put on this. Up here you have the dynamic drive mode selector, volume control, and the parking camera button. There's a nice center armrest, which splits to open and show and reveals a pretty deep cubby hole with further USB-C. We're very familiar with this MBUX, but what you can already see is that this is not the latest version that we see, for example, in the GLC or the E-Class with the much more phone-like main screen widgets. Still, for example, in the navigation, you have a little section to show you your media and your phone. You can also use Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, and while it doesn't occupy the whole screen and there are pretty big bezels, it's really sharp and bright. I know that capacitive buttons are in general not a great idea. However, since I'm very familiar with the steering wheel and have spent significant time driving Mercedes cars with this wheel, I can tell you that the fact that there are 4 individual spokes which handle very distinctive functions, there are nice indentations, and there is in fact a way to actually press them in for a genuine physical haptic feedback. This is a really decent system. There's also a really nice grip, and you get paddle shifters behind the steering wheel to change the 8-speed dual clutch transmission as well. The instrument cluster can also be customized to different views, like the sport view, which is a lot more engaging to look at, or the understated look. If you choose, you can even have the navigation broadcast across the entire screen, although your Android Auto navigation does not come on the screen here. Oh boy, look at the amount of space I have back here. This is the GLB, right? So this is much taller. So headroom is plenty. Knee room is also plenty. This seat is set to my driving position. I'm about 5'8" or 170 centimeters. And let's not forget, I can also slide this bench further up. And at the furthest position up, I still have just about enough knee room. I can also recline the back bench. You know, okay, this is too upright for my taste, but this is about nice and comfortable. So if you have the seven-seat option with the third row, in a pinch, you could actually liberate some more space for the rear passengers, and 3 AJs could sit one behind the other. What I'm not so fond of is this really dark interior. I like lighter colors. It makes the cabin feel a lot more spacious and airy. You can also get an optional panoramic sunroof, which I would always recommend. And of course, the seat colors and fabrics, even for the headliner, you have different choices. Isofix mounts on the outside 2 seats, not here in the middle. An armrest with adaptive cup holders here in the middle. They can also just fold this piece down as a ski hatch if needed. So again, so much flexibility, which makes this a really nice practical family car. Air conditioning vents and charging ports as well. Let's go check out the GLA. The door opens really nice and wide, so getting inside is not going to be that difficult. You might notice the different design for the inlay here with the 3-spoke star, but everything else is pretty much the same as the GLB that we saw. So microfiber and Artico or MB-Tex synthetic leather for the seats inside, and again a very black interior color scheme. Getting inside, the roof is a little bit shorter, and it does feel a lot more car-like to sit inside. The design is very familiar to the GLB, but there are some subtle differences, so why don't you join me inside? The main difference in the dashboard design is this section up here. Sure, the inlay is a little bit different, but so is the shape of this cutout. The same glove box with the nice utility of that shelf up here. The same climate control menu with actual buttons and knobs. The same tambour door with the inductive phone charger, cup holders, and the rest of the center console. Of course, the MBUX is also the same, but here you can take a quick look at the Apple CarPlay. And again, there's quite a bit of space that's left out, and again, a pretty large bezel, but the clarity is really nice and crisp. Yet, you see there's a navigation running here. It doesn't mirror that onto the other screen for the instrument cluster. Nevertheless, you have the same options for different screens that you can choose from. And finally, the same steering wheel with the same capacitive buttons on these 4 spokes and the same paddle shifters. The interior of the GLA in isolation is actually not bad. Again, plenty of knee room, plenty of headroom for me, 5'8", my driving position. And as you can tell, I'm not really cramped in here. The footwells are also really nice and deep, so I have plenty of space to slide my feet under the front seat as well. And of course, the bench slides forward, and yeah, with the bench all the way in the front position, my knees are touching the front seat, and I don't have much flexibility to recline the seat. I mean, it kind of tilts forward, which is really uncomfortable, but this is as far as it goes back. But you can also spec this with a lighter interior, and of course a sunroof would make things much more lively inside. Let's take a look at the trunk of both of these SUVs. As you can see, they both get automatic tailgates. The GLB, as expected, has the bigger trunk at 560 liters, and if we put our ruler here, you can see that you get about 90 centimeters or about 35 inches in terms of the actual length. This other significant dimension, of course, is the height. It's about 76 centimeters or about 30 inches. Now, the practicality is further enhanced by the fact that you can get the GLB with a 7-seater option. So there will be 2 seats that are flush with the seat, with the floor, and you can actually pop them up. Although you can imagine it's not going to be for full-size adults. Maybe children will fit in there. This doesn't have the 7 seats, so you get more volume down here. Now the back seats are also where the fun continues, because There's a lot of versatility. You can slide the rear bench in individual compartments like this, and you can also tumble the rear seats all the way flat, and the same goes for this bench, and now you have much more loading area. The GLA has only 435 liters of trunk capacity. That being said, this is, I would say, sufficient for daily use. You're still getting 77 centimeters or 30 inches, and then also in terms of height, it's about 77 or 30 inches. So it's a pretty usable area, very rectangular as well, and further volume is available below the floor. The parcel shelf is more rigid in this case, but you can easily pop that out. And interestingly, the bench also slides forward and tumbles all the way flat. You can get these two SUVs with a wide range of engine options, depending, of course, on your specific market. Here we have the same exact engine. This is the 250, which means that it's a 2-liter inline turbo 4 petrol engine. This comes mated to the 8G DCT dual clutch automatic transmission. It's, of course, as you can see, a transverse mounted front wheel drive layout, and hence the packaging is a lot more compact and provides more space for the cabin. But that also means that the 4MATIC, the all-wheel drive system, is an on-demand multi-plate clutch based system. Same goes, of course, for the GLA. The GLA is a little bit lighter, as expected, at 1,700 kilos as compared to the GLB, which means that it can accelerate 0 to 100 kilometers per hour or 0 to 62 miles per hour a little bit quicker, 6.8 seconds versus 7 seconds. They both, of course, have the adaptive suspension equipped in this particular case. This engine makes 224 PS or metric horsepower and has a mild hybrid system, so you get an additional 14 PS as a boost. All right, let's start off with the GLA. I'm here on the countryside and there's a nice country road. So let's go to the dynamic selector and put the car in sport mode. The engine, the adaptive suspension, the steering, the stability control, and the sound of the engine are all adapted now. And if I slow down, check my surroundings, and bring it to standstill, let's put our foot down. Here we go. I would say it's healthy performance. Remember, 224 horsepower, PS, metric horsepower, with an additional 14 PS with the mild hybrid boost. It's a good amount, it's a healthy amount. This is also a pretty light car. The steering does get a little bit heavier, but I wouldn't say that the feedback is phenomenal, but at least there's a nice tautness. The suspension, the damping has become a lot more firm, but at the same time, the surface is quite rough and I don't really feel that. So it's not filtering the sharpness, but it's keeping the car quite planted. The compact dimensions of the GLA also mean that it's really confidence-inspiring around these little narrow lanes here in the countryside. I don't feel like I'm going to be going off the road, or if there's a car coming from the opposite direction, I also can squeeze it between that gap much more easily. The engine also sounds pretty nice. It's not terrible, it's not fantastic. I would say it's enjoyable in short stints on occasion. Visibility is also really nice because of this tall windshield, and you're sitting a little bit higher up, so you also have a nice view kind of straight down the hood as well. Even the brake feel is pretty confidence-inspiring. So yes, you can have a little bit of fun with the GLA. It doesn't feel top-heavy, it doesn't feel like it's going to roll. So I guess this is the added benefit of the fact that the GLA is more of a hatchback crossover than a pure SUV. So this is definitely a little bit more engaging and a little bit more sporty to drive. Here we go, out on the highway. Merging onto oncoming traffic is a breeze. 220 horsepower, 224 is, I would say, sufficient. And let's talk about the GLA's highway mannerisms. First thing that stands out to me is actually a negative point, and that is the noise in the inside. I have spent a couple hours with each of these cars driving on the Autobahn, and I've noticed that they are not as quiet as I would have liked them to be. You can hear everything. You can hear the tires, you can hear the wind, and you can also hear the engine, even here in the comfort mode. And as of the day of filming, there is no option to get the acoustic comfort pack or the like, which will increase the sound deadening and have more acoustic dampening glass for the windshield and windows. So therefore, I feel like this is a little bit not meeting my expectations of a Mercedes, or even a car at this price point. I would expect it to be a little bit quieter. That being said, the seats are actually really comfortable. They're very firm, but at the same time, they support you really well. You have a lot of adjustment, including things like the lumbar support. And the visibility out the side, the front, and the rear window is also really nice thanks to these tall windows. The adaptive cruise control, the lane keeping assist, so the ADAS systems are also pretty useful. They're not as sophisticated as, for example, the latest GLC has. We can watch a review of that. For example, that has a feature where it will automatically overtake cars when it notices that you're going slower than you need to be and there's no traffic on the inside lane. This doesn't get features like that, but it still has a pretty confident and very safe adaptive cruise control system. Other than that, let's talk a little bit about the mileage. So here in the comfort mode and on the highway for about 200 kilometers, we're getting around 8.7 liters for 100 kilometers. And that's a little bit on the higher side if you ask me. I wasn't driving any faster than 150, and that too for very short periods of time. And like you see right now, there is a bit of traffic, so we are going at 100 kilometers per hour. And I should be seeing much better average fuel economy numbers than 8.7. So another thing to keep in mind there. This is a bit of a new engine, sure, but in general, this is not as efficient as I was hoping. But the suspension is doing a great job of keeping this car planted. It's really sure-footed even at high speeds. It's also really comfortable. So suspension is definitely doing a really good job. The steering is also pretty heavy, and with the steering assist, it kind of fights you for it, but it weighs up really nice. So on the highway, you get a little bit more of that surety as well. So the GLA is definitely very suitable for long distance drives out on the open highway. Now we're in a little village, and I think the GLA really shines. With its compact dimensions and its slightly higher seating position, you can really place the car very well and very confidently in these narrow little lanes. The suspension is also doing a really nice job at these low speeds to soften the sharp bumps of these cobblestones and these other, underlances that you find in small cities. The steering is also really light and responsive, so it's really easy to make quick corrections to dart in and around cars and traffic as well. All right, now the GLB. Yes, it's bigger and a bit heavier, same engine. Does that mean it's slow and cumbersome to drive? Well, back to dynamic button, to the sport mode, and let's put our foot down. The short answer is no. Healthy acceleration, decent steering feel and weight, very similar, of course, driving these two back to back. They behave very similar. The suspension is a bit tighter, but again, it doesn't let any of the sharpness filter in. It just gives you a little bit more tautness. This longer wheelbase actually lends it an even more planted and secure feeling here in the GLB. So that taller height, it's a little bit compensated with this slightly longer wheelbase. You end up feeling almost as secure and as confident around these corners as you did in the GLA. Although I must say, it doesn't feel as sporty as the GLA, but that's only by a very, very small margin. And again, because of that narrow width, it's easy to place the car in a gap when there's oncoming traffic like we just had. And on narrow little roads like this, you don't have to break the speed limit to have fun. The engine does sound quite nice. Same engine, so similar noise. So yeah, I'm actually pleasantly surprised that the GLB is, I would say, 90% as fun to drive on these winding roads as the GLB. The brake also performs really well. The same place I had to brake last time, because the weight difference is not that significant. Ultimately, just a little bit more body roll than the GLA, but still a real hoot around corners. Out on the highway, the GLB is actually a little bit louder than the GLA. So that was the first thing I mentioned. And because the aerodynamics of the GLB is seemingly worse, I feel like the wind noise is a lot more audible. But similarly, the same issue persists in terms of the tire noise and even the engine noise filtering into the cabin. It's definitely not uncomfortable, but it's definitely not up there with my expectations. So definitely something to keep in mind when you test drive your car. But again, the ADAS and the other systems are all pretty much the same. They're not the best in the Mercedes suite, but at this price point, in this entry-level segment, it's definitely very useful and very confidence-inspiring. Even the speed limiter, which I like to use on country roads and in the city, you can adapt that to this traffic sign directly with one button, and it even brakes when you are over the speed limit. So it's got extra features like this, which is really nice. Augmented reality for the navigation is an option, but also really nice to have if you're somebody who needs that additional input for your navigation. The seats are the same, very comfortable. There's not much of side bolstering, but I don't think you really need it. So overall, the GLB feels even more spacious on the inside, and therefore even more better at long distance cruising with your family. There's more headroom and it feels a little bit more spacious, even for the driver, but the noise is a little bit louder than the GLA. In terms of mileage, this also shows because of the weight and the aerodynamic disadvantage that the GLB has. It says 8.9 liters for 100 kilometers, and I've only been driving for about 200 kilometers today, and it's mostly been on the Autobahn, and I haven't really pushed it beyond 150 kilometers per hour, and that too for a very short periods of time. So I think this is probably another negative point after the sound insulation, is the fact that this engine is a little bit thirsty. But overall, I think the GLB is starting to be evidently the better pick of the two, simply because you're not compromising city capabilities in terms of maneuverability and parking. You're not compromising much in terms of dynamic capability out on twisty roads. And while it's a little bit louder on the highway, the space means that this is a lot more capable for long-distance family road trips. Is the GLB any more difficult to drive in the city? Well, no, because the width is pretty much the same. It's only taller and longer. And sure, the length does mean that finding a parking spot, especially in these parallel parking situations on the sides of these roads, might be a little bit trickier. It's definitely not cumbersome. You also, yes, don't have rear axle steering like the GLC platform would. And while the GLB and the GLC are similar in size, I think there's not much that you're losing out in terms of maneuverability without that rear axle steering. Visibility is again really easy, is really great, so it's really easy to place the car in these narrow lanes. The steering is really light here in the comfort mode at these low speeds. Suspension as well is performing really well to soften out these bumpy little cobblestones here in these European villages. Tall windows on the side mean I can easily peer through and place the car in these narrow lanes. So overall, it's definitely not a challenge to drive this, and it's not that much bigger, and therefore the GLB can be a city car as well. I think both of us are leaning a little bit towards the GLB, right? But there's one important factor that we haven't considered yet, and that's the price. Now here's where it gets really interesting. We have the 254 for both of these, right? The GLA in Germany starts at around 57,000 euros, and the GLB starts at around 59,000 euros. that sneers makes no difference, the same price. So you really look at what you're getting for the car and what suits your purposes more. And there, I think the GLB does everything the GLA can and has the extra added practicality. Therefore, you're getting more for the money, and this is my pick of the two.
An extensive driving review of the updated Mercedes G-Class and solving the big question, what is the best powertrain? The 6-cylinder, the 8-cylinder in the G63? Or the all-electric version, the new G-Class EV? We'll drive them all for you and then find out at the end of the review which one is best, or maybe which one is best for you. With Thomas Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go! Starting with the G63, the sportiest or most screaming out petrol version model. Here then with vertical fins in the front grille. So this is a more aggressive look. Whereas the G500 or G550 as it's called in the US, the 6-cylinder petrol now has a little bit more subtle look, if you can talk about subtle look for a G-Class or the G-Wagon. The turning indicators, as always, here on the top. You can also get it in this darkened out scheme if you want that. You can see here also that the Mercedes star is all blacked out, so different designs are possible. This one also equipped with some carbon fiber detailing. You can always see it in the lower part. Usual G-Class starts 18-inch wheels up to 20-inch. AMG starts 20-inch wheels and then up to 22-inch. And these ones are the biggest ones available here in this golden style. So yeah, most screaming out look as for that one. The length here really depends more on what you have behind the vehicle. If you have a full spare tire like we have it here, or if you have none, or maybe just a so-called design box with the EV. So I'm going to show that to you, because the base length is all the same, and then it really just depends what comes on top of that here with some carbon fiber housing as well. This is then the G63 model. You can already see it here in the badge in the rear. Among the updates for this facelift is also a lot about aerodynamics, because wind noise on the inside has always been a thing. You see that the base building form of this vehicle is just huge. It's a large box actually. Yeah, you can also see driving on this, it should be a G500 I think. So especially in this area there were a lot of wind noise and they tried to tackle that. So this stripe here is new, this one here, and also on top of that there's a new lip leading the air better over the vehicle, and together with some insulation measures, Mercedes promises us now that it's a little bit more silent on the interior, especially on the motorway. Of course, we're going to find out for you if this is actually true. So this is the G63 and also short look we had with the G500 petrol model. What about the EV? So they call it the G580 with EQ technology. Color-wise, I've already decided for this one, but my clothing does not mean that I'm biased towards the electric version. I just had to pick one outfit and yeah, this color really matched it, so that was working fine. But you know, I'm totally undecided myself yet. I will decide later on after driving which one is also my favorite one. The EV is, I mean, not too different in look, but here you can see it's more a closed grille, not entirely closed, because there are some cooling openings, but it's a little bit closer, I would call it that way. Same round signature here in the daytime running light, and we've maybe seen that. Although this is not the G63, it has an even stronger hood, so the electric model gets an even more emphasized hood actually. That is also a very interesting choice, and they made that to be a little bit more exclusive for the EV model. So then here 20-inch wheels in black, and the side profile is more or less the same, just that this one here is on paper then shorter because there's no spare tire. You can also get a full spare tire for the EV version, but what I've done here is install the so-called design box, and you can see this has this split, black on top, blue in the bottom to fit to the vehicle. And then you can press a button here on the side, and then you have the charging cable right here. And you can charge from 10 to 80% state of charge in 32 minutes with around 200 kilowatt charging peak. That is actually quite decent. And the battery is the same that is used in the EQS facelift, 116 kilowatt hours net. Promising on paper like a realistic range, I would say 400 kilometers, 250 miles. But later on we will also test the energy consumption, and then we can tell you more about the realistic range we can expect here from this electric version. But of course, we also have to talk about the different petrol engines. It would start with the 3-liter 6-cylinder diesel actually, with around 370 horsepower. Then there's the G500 or G550 it's called in the US. This is then the 3-liter 6-cylinder petrol engine. Has been kind of, let's say, downgraded from a 8-cylinder to a 6-cylinder, that one. Which is not necessarily only a bad thing. And why is that? I'll tell you later when I drive this 6-cylinder. So that 3-liter 6-cylinder petrol engine is at 450 horsepower. No matter which petrol or diesel you pick now, they are all mild hybrids. So you have like an electric boost. 5.4 seconds, the acceleration figure for the petrol engine. And here then, with 585 horsepower, the G63 4-liter V8 bi-turbo. It's then 4.3 seconds in the acceleration figure with the AMG Performance Pack, because then you also can do a launch control with this one. The electric version is at 4.7 seconds, so half a second slower than the G63. Means this one here is the second quickest model, so it's quicker than a G500 or a G550. The question is, what do I have here under the hood? Is it the frunk? Let's see. No, it's not. It's actually all the way closed. But you maybe hear that also. It emits this electric static sound, basically. Yeah, also very interesting. And powertrain-wise, with the electric version, of course, gets even more interesting. It has 4 individual electric motors, 1 per wheel. And the battery is placed in the very bottom of the vehicle. And then the electric motors, there's like 1 housing per axle. And the 2 electric motors are combined in 1 housing, but then they sit basically like, you know, one is like here, one is below. We can also see it in the cutaway model, and the one shaft goes in the one direction and the other shaft then goes in the other direction. And therefore you can rule every wheel individually, also making possible the so-called G-turn, where the car turns around on standstill, and the G-steering, where one wheel is getting hooked to the ground, and then you basically turn around that wheel if you want to have not turning on standstill, but a very, very close call. As for the interior, let's start with the G63. That door closing sound has always been very iconic, and you really have to slam the door. So just closing it gently usually ends up like this, and it's not really properly closed. And that sound is super iconic, it's fun, but you also have to mention that when you close it a lot of times during the day, not sure how often that is happening, then it can also be sometimes annoying that you always have to use so much force. Yeah, but that's probably just personal preference. Cockpit here of the G63. You can see there are some major upgrades. First of all, on the passenger side, you have this very interesting handle here. This is then, yeah, for off-road use mainly, that the passenger can also hold tight. Some carbon fiber decoy elements you can see right here. And when I'm sitting here with 189, 6'2", there's a lot of headroom left. There is this panoramic roof. There's like this manual shade, and there's also a one. So hit the ignition here. This one here you can actually still really open like this to leave some more light in. Yeah, so that's pretty nice. Then cockpit changes, more infotainment system upgrades. So you have a newer version in here of the software, and that's cool. You have it also via touch. So here, right side then via touch. This is actually quite cool. And also in the digital instruments, you can set different stylings. You can have this more classic view, but you can also go for this super sport look, for example. So like the interior upgrades, I've just yesterday driven the pre-facelift one, and yeah, in comparison to this then, it looks already like a little bit dated, more or less. Seats, so far only animal skin surfaces available, but I heard they are developing also animal-free version at the moment. They're coming too late with that. Yeah, but of course we'll keep you updated with that, with the developments. Glove box here, dampened. You can also slam it through. And then I really like the turbine vent style here. There's also some ambient lighting on the inside. And this is particularly interesting. This is the off-road cockpit. And they have the different differential locks, front, central, rear, and also the low range activation. And just remember how that one looks when we switch over to the electric version, because obviously there are no mechanical locks for the electric version because the electric motors are not connected. So this will be different very soon. I really like the carbon fiber decal element also on the middle console here, because then you don't have so much black piano lacquer. This way you can slide open. There's now inductive charging pad, which is also cooled underneath. So when I remove this rubber pad here, you can see there's the cooling opening. So that's actually good. However, I have tested it, and although it has this cooling opening, the phone was still overheating. That's unusual, because usually when you have these cooling functions, they don't do that anymore. They don't overheat. Here it was the same case. I'm not sure why. Then the cup holders are quite large, but don't hold bottles that tight, but they can be cooled and heated at the same time. That's a cool luxury feature. Then you have this touchpad here, where you can also control the infotainment system, like swipe right and left. In the lower part, you also control the driving modes, like sport mode, comfort mode, and so on. The AMG also now gets a special hydraulic roll stabilization on demand. So it starts all with the adaptive suspension. New is this roll stabilization. We'll test today, because this vehicle is equipped with everything. Then here, more space in the middle console. They have a lot of cables here in the moment. They always put it here then for events that everyone can charge actually the phones. And this my favorite steering wheel, because it's microfiber on the side and carbon fiber on the top. And you can choose the driving modes directly at the steering wheel. That is a very convenient thing to do. This AMG steering wheel always has the two-spoke design, whereas a base G-Class steering wheel would have this, like this one wing right and left, and then have like a slot design on the middle part, so it looks a little bit different. What about the rear? Because in the front I can easily sit. You have this upright seating position. It's so special when you look towards the front and see this large hood, so that you can understand why people say, I feel so special when driving a G-Class. However, the rear seating experience is, first of all, a little bit limited as for the space. However, it still works with at least four tall Ls, if not 5 tall Ls. Here in the middle part you can also sit. Also works as for the headroom. Here's a little bit stiffer. On the outside a little bit softer. You don't really need this rear seat entertainment system. I think it's kind of useless. To me, people rather tend to use their own devices, I feel. It's not the most comfortable experience in your rear, but at least you also sit upright, and that's it. And talking about the wind and so on, this will be better than here in the new version, so that is also improving the rear seating comfort a little bit. But it's not like a passenger luxury experience like in the modern SUV. You just have to know that. What is always quite cool, I found, is the seat folding process, because here you have this strap here, and then you can pull up the lower part, and that makes space then for the back part here, and then you can fold everything flat. There's still a step to the trunk, but in that way you can better load longer things in. And I would say we'll take a look at the trunk right now, because you have about 575 liters, and since you have the spare tire, it opens in the side way like this. This is the petrol version, obviously. 1 meter or 40 inches in width easily. The length is about 80 centimeters or 31 inches. And the special thing is always the height, which is enormous. And there's like, what? I mean, the opening here, it's like 1 meters and 5 or 41 inches. Massive indeed. And there you can see here, when I folded one of the seats, I can do the very same with the bench on the left side. You can see there is the step still, but then this one actually folds flat. And the interesting thing is now, if we move over to the electric version, the measures don't differ that much actually, because you lose about 20 liters, and that is just because this very lip here is a little bit higher. You can see here, this one would be all the way flat in the petrol version. The rest is actually more or less the same. So that's actually a good thing. Also, the rear seats are the same. The front cockpit is a little bit different actually. So let me show that to you. There we go. Of course, you can get different color stylings. These ones are some gray seats now. But that is not necessarily about the powertrain version, but more about the styling you individually pick. Here once again with the panic handle for the passenger and so on. I'll give you some more light. The instruments look a little bit different. You have this instrument styling here, which you also maybe know from the EQS, EQE and so on. But that one you can also switch a little bit around, but you don't have this super sport styling here, for example. So let's say from these stylings here, a little bit less dramatic, but you also have these new off-road gauges, both here on the left side and also on the right side. You can go for special off-road gauges. There we go, off-road. And then if I start the vehicle, then you have here these all these informations here, the degree, angle, and so on. And talking about the off-road, so this element here in the middle looks the same, but in the electric version it's a little bit different. Here you activate the low range. Wait a minute, low range? Yes, indeed, it's a 2-speed vehicle, so there's a different transmission ratio, so to speak, and therefore you need 2 speed actually, so 2 gears, so to speak, then for the electric version, and you just pick it right here in the middle for the off-road driving. Then you don't have you know, like so much high speed available, so it drives just slower, but you actually have more torque available than for the off-road driving. Then on the right side, you have the G-turn. Wait a minute, this is the... Yeah, right. This is a G-turn. There we go. Then the vehicle can turn on standstill. And on the left side would be the G-steering. That one is only available in the low range. G-steering then, you know what I said, like that is hooked at one wheel and then turns around this one wheel. And of course we will try that out for you here today. But they manage actually everything, that no matter which powertrain you pick, from the basic exterior-interior experience, there's not too much difference for the G-Class customer. Then it's more than about the drive, what we will experience in detail for you. Yeah, what else can you do with the design box? Not only with the cable, Leah is showing us some other ideas. Why not using it as a picnic box for the fruit and snacks, water supply right there. Yeah, the only thing is, of course, that it's just a little bit more, just kidding, because that might get really hot when there's a lot of sun on that design box, right? But I mean, do you have any ideas what you would put in the design box if not the cable? Now it's about the G-turn. So what do? First of all, we pick the rock driving mode. Then we have to go to the neutral to put in the low range. That's like the different gear, the off-road gear. And then we can activate this right button here. First put it in D, then activate the G-turn. And now hold the steering wheel gear shift pedal, it says. 1 is enough, I guess. And then, let's see. Crazy. This is crazy, yeah. Whoa. And now it stops, and this was 720 degrees, so 2 times around. This is actually not how it's meant to be. The actual use case would be something like, let's see, I'm off-road here somewhere, and then suddenly I see, oh, there's like a dead end, so I can't go up there or something, or maybe some vehicles are crossing, and then there's no way out. And then I could, once again, go to the G-turn and have like the more proper use case. And that would be actually just turning like this, for example, like 100, 120 or 180 degrees. And then just continue like this, and that's it. So this is like the normal use case. The more times turning around, this is then the show case. Now the G steering. For that, also go to the rock mode, then to the N, to the neutral. There we go, low range. There we go, and then we also activate the G steering. So, there we go. And now, basically the curve inner wheel is being stopped when I'm here now in the slalom, which is actually too tight to be in usually for the vehicle, but now it's basically getting turned around. So the vehicle would not be able to go through this tight slalom, but I feel that I'm yeah, slowly drifting, basically. That's actually how it feels like, because now the left back wheel is being braked in and the rest of the vehicle turns around. Yeah, it's really like super slow drifting. Feels really interesting. What would be the use case for that? It's not, of course, a slow slalom. This is the ultimate showcase, so to speak. The real use case would be you are off-road and then there's such a tight turn which you can actually not go through. Then you just activate the G steering and then you can take this very tight off-road turn. So this would be a use case that you don't have to go like back, forth, back and forth again. And now you might wonder what happens actually when I'm still in this G-turn mode and I apply some more throttle, because that was now like how you're supposed to do it off-road. Here now you can see the vehicle is basically drifting. So it's not only a G steering, it's also a drift mode, so to speak. Now I'm guest with Michael Weikopf. He's an instructor and he wants to show me how fast the EQ can really go off-road. And that was like 130 kilometers an hour. Okay, this is more rally racing now. Now you know why my professional instructor is doing this. I better hold on tight.
And you cannot feel the weight, isn't it?
No, I mean it's like with like 500 kilograms more with this one, with the EQ. But yeah, as I said earlier, due to the low center of gravity, you don't really feel the extra weight. It's absolutely insane how fast the vehicle can go here. Yeah, here it more feels like a small rally car indeed. Yeah, I think like the loose ground is doing the car very well actually. Interesting how the tires also are hooking up. Crazy stuff.
Now it becomes bumpy a little.
In which driving school did you learn to drive that way actually?
I have no driving license.
He has no driving license. Okay, that explains it. Holy moly, this is crazy, yeah. So if anyone is wondering if the electric G-Class can do some serious off-roading or maybe even take part in the Dakar or something, this works.
Bumpy. By the way, in the past it was the first part of the Dakar rally. Yes, also.
Oh. Yeah, so off-roading, definitely the EV can keep up, or if not even better. I mean, in rock climbing, for example, this is a nice water splash. And you might ask yourself, what does the G-turn or G-steering do to the vehicle, especially the G-turn? I mean, most obviously, it's not something good for the vehicle where you take special care of the vehicle. That's, I think, kind of obvious. But Mercedes says that on the electric motors and on the shaft and everything, on the chassis, it shall not have any major negative impact, because that really quick spinning of the wheels, they say, is way better than, for example, Yangwang does it, like the BYD sister company, where they do it in a very slow way. And this is like a different approach. Here they turn so quick that there's actually so much slip that there are no big forces on the vehicle left. The most damaged part is basically the tire. However, these are special off-road tires that can also take that better than normal road tires, and you're only supposed to do it on off-road conditions. And of course it's better when it's really slippery or you have loose ground and so on. So the most damaged part is definitely tires. Yeah, and most obviously also the paint then from flying debris. Let's start with the G500 or G550 in the US. Sport mode, acceleration to the Autobahn. Let's go. Well, that's 120, so it was 20 kilometers an hour to 120. It's not literally an Autobahn here, but a French motorway, so not a German Autobahn. But that was already really decent. This is the 3-liter 6-cylinder now, so the 500 or 550 went from the 8-cylinder to the 6-cylinder, but still quite powerful. 5.4 seconds is the acceleration figure officially. Sport mode that was, then the gears are turned up higher. You can also go to the comfort mode. And as for the wind noise, well, as you see it here, it's quite windy here today. That's of course a good test, because then you feel it even more how windy it is here in the cabin. And the even better thing is that just yesterday I've been driving the pre-facelift model, and there were often like some rattling sounds coming here, especially from the side, and just strange side wind noises, and these are actually gone now. So I also talked to Leah about this. She also said that she notably felt that here in the facelift model it is definitely more silent than before. It's very good to test it here on the motorway. However, that does not mean that it can keep up with the modern SUV also inside the Mercedes portfolio. So when you still compare it to a Mercedes GLE, for example, or Mercedes GLS, or Mercedes GLC, whatever size you want to compare it to, they are definitely way more silent than this one here. So you cannot deny the fact that the base building form of this one here is still bulky in a way, and is not, we stand so much against the wind, and the car itself is also not the newest as for the technology. So definitely makes more sense to buy a modern SUV if you want to have it more silent on the interior. And here up to 100 kilometers an hour, it's more or less okay. But when you accelerate and then you drive a little bit quicker, you see in the comfort mode, it took a while to pick up a little bit. Here, like at 130 kilometers an hour, like 80 miles an hour, wow, it gets really, really loud in here. Really windy, especially then here from this area here. Yes, they improved, especially like the transition here at the edges of the outside chassis. As I said, it has improved, but it's still very loud in here. You have to know that, and that kind of explains why the G-Class is often bought as a city SUV, and people wonder, maybe even criticize that people drive it inside the city. But you can understand in a way that it's not a high-speed Autobahn cruiser. Obviously, it is a Geländewagen. That's where the name is coming from. It is a true off-road vehicle, and that's why also the performance on the motorway is somewhat still limited. Not performance-wise, as we've shown to you, the acceleration is still there. Definitely a big difference if you are in the comfort mode, then it starts to pick up. Or if you are in the sport mode, you select here from below, then you're already a gear lower, and see here the responsiveness is way better in the sport mode as for that. So 130 kilometers an hour, even if it would be a little bit less windy, it's to me not a comfortable speed to drive the G-Class in. So I would, rather than just relax and maybe cruise on the right lane with a lower speed or something. You maybe also hear on camera that I really have to raise my voice, and also when we talk to each other, we, like yesterday, you say, could you please talk a little bit louder? But the good thing is definitely that the facelifted model is more silent than before, so the improvements are working still with the limitations. As for this very engine here, the 3-liter 6-cylinder, you can of course criticize, hey, I want to have the 8-cylinder still, also in the 500 or 550. Why is it, by the way, called 550 in the US, although it's the very same engine? This has like a historic background where it used to have, where the engine was upgraded to a 5.5 liter engine, and that's where the name was taken. And then they just kept this name in the US as for that. But here now, 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, this is okay as for the wind noises. For me, especially as a German, it's really unusual to see people pass me on the left lane, because in Germany, when we have premium cars and so on, we rather use the left lane and drive a little bit quicker then. As for the fuel economy, this is actually, of course, now I did the acceleration and so on, then it got worse, but before that I was driving cruise control, steady, 100 kilometers an hour, 110, 60, 70 miles an hour, something like that, and scored some 10 liters on 100 kilometers. And there also the 6-cylinder has the advantage, because it's way more fuel efficient than the 8-cylinder. And 10 liters on 100 kilometers, like 23 mpg US, 28 mpg UK, something like that. You can really live with that as for this vehicle size here. And you have to think about that the diesel engine, which I've also tested before, is just like 1 to maximum 2 liters better, like more like 1.5 liters on 1 kilometers better, so like 5 mpg better, something like that. And then the diesel, in most cases doesn't make too much sense. This one also gives you more driving fun, more responsiveness. But then the 8-cylinder will be way worse. Yeah, but we will also test that very soon and also see about the energy consumption of the electric version. And now the G63 race start. Plop. Whew.
Oh my god!
Yeah, of course, this is a difference to the G500. Oh, and also the suspension, especially here in the Sport Plus mode. Wow, this is really rough, and here now you feel every little bump in the road. And also here the 22-inch wheels, they of course reduce the comfort massively. So this is more for when the road is really even and nice and so on. So these ones pass here. We can go off the side path here with it.
It's nice.
Yeah. Although 22-inch wheels, yeah, might not be the best choice for off-roading for sure. But of course in the Sport Plus mode, so responsive with this 585 horsepower. And then here, when the road is a little bit better, then the 22-inch wheels are actually fine. Then you feel the sportiness, you have all of that response. Here, this vehicle equipped with the anti-roll stabilization. And indeed, I mean, usually a G-Class shakes up quite substantially, but here it does so less. Once again, no comparison to a real sports SUV, but considering it's a G-Class, it stays more upright now. Let's also compare how it is in the comfort mode. Yeah, I think, a little bit softer, but you feel it more? Yeah, but I mean, in general, it doesn't shake up much. And from suspension, I mean, as long as the road is even and nice, it's actually fine. Just when it's like bumpy, then really sets in, definitely. Here on the countryside road, maybe you heard it earlier, it is very windy today, but once again I have to say, definitely a little bit less wind noise than before, but still, as I said, already on the motorway, there is still significant wind noise here on the interior. Here, when you push the vehicle into the corners, then you still feel the weight and that you also sit really high. It is better definitely now with the roll stabilization, so the G63 definitely helps there. But I wouldn't say it's fun in a way of driving like a sports SUV like Porsche Cayenne or a GLE AMG or something like that. So you definitely feel the off-road capabilities still, that it's more on the off-road side than on the fun driving side or something. But for the G-Class here, still quite a good, but I'm not sure how good it is on the passenger. It's yeah. The other thing is when things are shaking up, that's also not that good on the passenger for sure. Yeah, for that case, actually Sport or Sport Plus is actually better because it just keeps the car a little bit stiffer, and then the passenger usually feels also a little bit better. Then again, in the Sport Plus, you tend to accelerate a little bit more, and the responsiveness is really, really cool. And of course, you always have this really nice growling sound that keeps you entertained here in the G63. So as for controlling it on the road and on the corners, as long as everything goes straight, is absolutely fine. But you should not use the power to use it as a race machine. When the corners get a little bit tighter and you accelerate out hard off the corners, it is not that well controllable as it probably seems, or as AMG like name suggesting or something. Here then the power sets in sometimes really spontaneously when the turbos are also setting in and so on. So you have to be mindful with this vehicle. Just because you have the power doesn't mean you use it as a race machine. AMG usually always promises this very sporty character, and it also does have it in the longitudinal way, but you have to be aware of, be careful with it. It is not meant to be driven that agile in the corners. This is just not what the car is, meant to be in the first place. It's still a G-Class, a Geländewagen. It's still more meant for the off-road purpose. So just don't stress it too much, I would say, in that kind of respect. But of course, sound-wise, this V8 here is always a lot of fun. I also like the updated steering. It's really precise. You see here, you don't have to work that much. I feel in the pre-facelift you had to work the steering a little bit more. at the same time, so it's more comfortable and sporty at the same time. To me, also more progressive. So very good control of the vehicle as for the steering. But of course, weight and suspension-wise and so on, you always have to stay focused that you don't do anything too wild with this vehicle. You feel that at some point you will lose control over the vehicle if you just stress it over the limit. Now the electric one, acceleration. Ooh, it's also preloading. Let's go. Plop, that is to 100 with the electric one. Woo. That was also really quick. You also heard this electric sound a little bit. It actually sounds like a combustion engine, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's more. I mean, this is probably the most combustion, most combustion engine sound alike we've heard so far. That's very interesting. In the sport mode, of course, everything is also tuned here to the sporty side, and yeah, as long as the road is even, here also once again nice in the driving behavior. The recuperation is, of course, a major difference here as well. It either starts in strong recuperation, that means when I lift the foot of the throttle here, or the accelerator pedal, it's, yeah, almost one pedal driving. You can here even tune it to maximum recuperation with the left pedal here, and then it's really, really strong. Definitely one bar pedal. Yeah, for the passenger, not that pleasant. And then with the right hand here, the pedal, you can go to normal recuperation, no recuperation at all. Then here, I lift my foot off the throttle, it's just rolling. Or hold it, and then you are in intelligent recuperation. That always depends, for example, if a car is in front of you and so on. And which is the best mode really depends also on personal preference, I would say. The thing with the intelligent recuperation is that depends really if someone is in front of you or not. It is somewhat nice because at some point you just roll, and when there's then someone in front of you, then, for example, the deceleration sets in. So it is, on the one hand, the more clever system. On the other hand, it does different things at a different time, and you might want to have something more predictable. So it's pro and con, definitely. What is interesting is when I stop the vehicle, turn it off, and then turn it on again. The recuperation modes are being reset depending on what mode I have been driving in. Intelligent recuperation stays active when I restart the vehicle, and strong recuperation. When I'm in a different mode than these two, then it automatically resets to strong recuperation. I'm really surprised by that they picked such a combustion engine-alike sound, I would say. That actually makes it feel more combustion engine-alike than other electric vehicles, I would say. Here in the comfort mode, it's a little bit less pronounced. And you can also turn it completely off if you like. And that is here G-Raw, the G-Raw sound experience. So when we turn it off and then go once again in the sport mode, there's nothing. And I feel, especially for the passenger, it's actually good to have some kind of sound feedback, because then you can mentally prepare a little bit more of what's coming ahead. What's, by the way, very irritating to me is, for example, when I'm here stationary and the camera is on, I cannot change the driving mode during that, so I have to deactivate the rear view camera, and then I can change the driving mode, for whatever reason. I don't know. Let's see how good I can control the vehicle in sport mode, and I accelerate out of a standstill like corner here. It's really great performance, but you see also it's not the best handling car that you still feel, because you have this off-road focus. But to me, astonishing is also that all these vehicles here feel kind of similar. In the sport mode, see steering and how it shakes up or not, because here also we don't have this special AMG anti-roll control. And then the question is, passenger opinion, does it roll more than the AMG? It is a little bit softer, definitely. Yeah. That you feel comfort mode, and it feels softer. but it's also 20-inch wheels. Yeah, the AMG is definitely stiffer and rougher in the ride, I would say so. Yeah, so there the electric one is a little bit more forgiving. Here you also have more weight, so 500 kilograms more of weight in comparison to the G500 or 550, around 400 kilograms in comparison to the AMG model. Do you feel that? It's a very heavy vehicle anyways, so by that also you don't feel then so much that there's even more extra added weight. So I think this is not a very crucial point, I feel. So I could have imagined that we feel it more, but it's not actually feel it too much, I have to say. So the AMG is something on its own, definitely. It just feels rougher, sportier. At the same time, it doesn't make it a sports car machine. Here the electric one, the 580 EQ, does feel quite similar to a G500, I would say, in the whole driving characteristics. Just that this one here, of course, has even more punch. You know, this electric power sets in very, very quickly. So this is, I would say, the main difference to all of the combustion engines, that we immediately have this power directly available. And like from the standstill, the first few meters, that makes it even more explosive than the G63 actually. And driving it on rough roads, here 20-inch wheels definitely help massively. So that's a big difference to the AMG model with 22-inch wheels. So much better on rough roads. At the same time, here when it's really getting rough, you still feel it. You also hear and feel all camera equipment shaking and so on. Let's put it to the comfort mode, make everything a little bit lighter and more comfortable, and then it's actually okay. Pricing roundabout, taken from the German reference price, at least 120,000 euros for the diesel, 130,000 for the G500 or G550, the 6-cylinder petrol engine, then more than 140,000 euros for the EQ, for the G580, the electric version, and yeah, some 190,000 euros for the G63. Of course, then when you add some extra equipment, you easily pay more than 200,000 euros for the G63. And of course, also the electric version will get more expensive. So definitely the G63 is still the by far most expensive version. Which one to take now as for the powertrains? For that we need to know the electric consumption, the efficiency of here the EQ model. And that's very interesting because there's a wide difference, a big difference between driving slower and driving high speed on the motorway. So we did a test first at 80 kilometers an hour. Predominantly is like 50 miles an hour. And there was still quite okay, about 23 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers. That's 2.6 miles per kilowatt hour, meaning at that speed, or more like city consumption and so on, you can get 500 kilometers or 300 miles of that electric range. That's totally fine. But then when you go on the motorway at 130 kilometers an hour or 80 miles an hour, it skyrocketed up from the consumption to about 42 kilowatt hours on 100 kilometers. And that's just, yeah, about 1.5, 1.5 miles per kilowatt hour, meaning then only about 280 kilometers or 170 miles of range. Yeah, and that's of course not comparable to another modern EV, which is in a more efficient building style and CD value and so on and so on. So that means in general, the vehicle is really loud at the motorway at higher speeds. So it's not the high-speed motorway vehicle anyway. And then of course, this disadvantage is maybe not the largest one for the electric one. So if you have a good charging infrastructure and if you predominantly use it, you know, like in city, countryside or for off-roading, then the electric one is way to go for. And for the performance you get and for the off-road capabilities you get, it is also not the most expensive one if you compare it to the G63. The extra price on the G63 is not justified at all. You really have to say that. And also the ride gets a little bit rougher even. So I don't see much point in the G63 when you take the logical aspect, so to speak, because again, it's way higher in the price. Yes, you get the V8 and you have great performance, but just from the driving experience, it is actually better and more comfortable in the G500 or 550 or in the electric version. I would say the electric version comes in the driving experience close to the G500 or 550 besides the acceleration, because the electric one is in the acceleration is always directly there. It's so, instant, even more instant than in the G63 if you count the very first few meters or so. So yeah, I think it's a matter of charging infrastructure. Then of course, then you can easily go for the electric one. If you don't have a good charging infrastructure and want the best overall G-Class, then I think you should go for the G500 or the 550 as it's called in the Northern American market, because it is still quite okay now with the consumption in this 3 or 6 cylinder. So I don't see much like a big disadvantage in that. It is the most efficient one from the powertrains, which at the same time still fun to drive. You know what I mean? Diesel will of course be even lower in the consumption, but maybe not as much fun to drive. So I think the 500 or the 550 is the sweet spot if you don't want to go electric. And which one would I take? Well, since I don't take it on the motorway anyway, I think the electric one is actually a cool choice for, like when you have it on maybe like your personal private real estate or something, maybe that. But I think overall a G500 would be also to me the most suitable one, because you can do like most stuff with it. Yeah, and I'm also waiting for an animal-free interior before I would buy a G-Class. So what do you think? Which one would you take? Tell me in the comments. Which one would you take home right now of these?
And now to our conclusion for today with the Mercedes SUVs. First of all, the Mercedes G-Class, it is definitely the most off-road capable one. However, also then has disadvantages on the road, for example, as for the wind noise and so on. So in a way of, does it make sense? No, it does not make sense at all. Also from the driving dynamics and so on. It is really, if you want to go for that one, for its iconic character, for the exterior design, or if you really need it for off-roading. Mercedes GLS and GLE are related in the technology and also everything you have basically in A and B pillar and so on. Yes, they changed the styling from the GLS now a little bit. However, build quality wise and the whole quality impression and also the reliability rankings and so on, they are not on top of their game, especially if you compare it to other Mercedes models. In the middle there is the Mercedes GLC, which has, in my opinion, the highest build quality from all the Mercedes SUVs, and a lot of customers think so as well. It sells quite well and has also been scoring better results in reliability rankings, for example. It is available as the Coupé and the SUV version, like the GLE. This is just a matter of taste, honestly. You don't lose too much flexibility unless you want to install a dog box in the trunk or something like that. Especially in Europe, you can get the air suspension and also the rear axle steering. It's not available, these two technology features, on the Northern American market for the GLC, however. Which version should you go for of the GLC? Well, on the interior you have very nice soft Artico leatherette seats. These are the ones to go for, definitely. And from the engine, I feel the 6-cylinder, the 450D, so there you can still get a 6-cylinder. The performance versions, the AMGs, yeah, they are 4 cylinders anyway. Then you can also go for normal GLC. Also the AMG versions, they make you have less driving comfort. So I would rather go than either for a simple 2-liter 4-cylinder petrol or diesel engine with a low spec to save money, or then like the perfect combination I think would be a well-spec'd GLC with air suspension, rear axle steering, and the 450D, the 6-cylinder diesel. The compact platform brothers are the ones that are best in price performance. The Mercedes GLB has the size of a GLC, however it is cheaper and is also more flexible for the family inside and so on, has a shorter hood, therefore in comparison to the exterior length, definitely more interior space. The GLA is more or less the same vehicle, just that it's a little bit shorter. So if you think about price performance, and what do you get for your money? The Mercedes GLB is the price performance winner, whereas the Mercedes GLC would be the overall, no matter what the price is, winner from all the SUVs. This is my take here on these Mercedes SUVs. Tell me what's your pick today and tune in to more comparison episodes.